Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the October 21st workshop with Murrieta City Council is now called to order. Madam City Clerk, would you please call roll?
Councilmember Stone.
Here.
Councilmember Holliday.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle.
Here.
Mayor Warren.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all members are present with the exception of Councilmember DeForest with an excused absence.
Thank you very much. We're going to go into the workshop right away, but before staff presents, I want to clarify that I will preside over this workshop similarly like I have done to others where we take public comment after each presentation section in order to ensure that we remain on topic. Those presentation sections or topics are applying of hillside standards, slope thresholds, relationship to specific plans, use of GIS versus average slope formula CAD-based alternative. So we're going to go one by one, and so that way everybody we can wrap up each one and then we can talk about that. Then if something hasn't been discussed that still wants to be discussed, I will have public comments at the end, and then after that, council will then close out with either comments or directions before we go into closed session. Okay? Good. Let's get started. It's all yours, staff.
So thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm going to kick it off here and then turn it over to Chris. So at our last workshop, with you, it was clear that we needed to really focus in on, some key discussion areas. Typically our approach is when we bring you an ordinance, we bring you the whole thing, and it can be a lot to digest. So definitely coming at you from a different approach where we've divided the hillside standards review into smaller, what I would call bite-sized pieces. And so as you correctly identified, we're looking at, really just 4 topics today that we're wanting to get City Council's input and ideally direction and buy-off, if you will, on how staff has presented, some of the material. But we've really kind of maybe just to recouch it a little bit more. We've framed the discussion where we're seeking your direction on these 4 policy issues that you identified earlier. We've given you a list of pros and cons. And so once we get, direction from you, we'll kind of check the box on these discussions and kind of, set it aside and be back to you in future workshops to start talking about the other development standards that are not before you tonight, like, for example, landscape standards and wall heights and some of the other like technical definition changes. So, and just to give you some context, we've been at this, for a while. We were asked originally to provide some clarifications to make the application of the hillside standards easier. And so that's what our goal has been all along, was to try and do that. So along the way, obviously, we've gotten feedback from the council and stakeholders. And so we've, taken all that and processed it and think we've come up with potential solutions for you to consider. So with that, I'm going to hand the presentation over to Chris Tracy, Senior Planner.
Thank you, David. So I'll just jump right on into this. Today's focus topic areas include the applicability of hillside standards, slope thresholds, 20% versus 25%, relationship to specific plans, and then use of GIS as a primary measurement tool versus an average slope formula CAD-based alternative if there's a disagreement. So just some general plan guidance on this real quick. The goal here is we want to protect the environment and aesthetic hillside values, encourage responsible hillside development, and maintain scenic resources and slope integrity. Staff has discovered inconsistent standards that may challenge the current standards as they are today. Feedback from applicants is the current standards, as you know, are very complicated and hard to understand. And what we're trying to do is streamline the review and make it an easier process. So our last workshop on this, members of the public raised questions about the applicability and the impact on property rights. This is our first focus area, and we'll go into a little bit more detail here. So this is our current definition as it relates to a 20% threshold. We've kind of gone over this before, but right now, a hillside area, in one area it's defined as 20% or greater and or on a designated significant features map on file with the department. So it's a very wide net. The pros with this is it does help preserve a lot of areas of the city, and it protects scenic and natural characters of hillside neighborhoods throughout a big area. A larger number of properties provide a stronger foundation for evaluating trade-offs and prioritizing areas for conservation versus development. Some of the cons to this: the definition relies on a map that hasn't been ever codified. We don't have an official map. Applying hillside rules to more properties increases costs and reports for applicants and staff review time. Some cons of this also include some properties may face restrictions that limit the buildable area. There's broader application that slows permitting and enforcement, and more technical environmental review could delay development approvals. So that's our 20% threshold kind of in the definition. So I'm going to switch gears here and talk about the 25% because this comes up more often. We did talk about this definition previously, and there's 4 other areas in the code where the 25% threshold is identified. So 20% is a little bit of an anomaly. The 25% is more consistent. So on your screen here, these are the other areas where the 25% comes up. Prior direction on this, so back in 2022, staff was directed to apply a 25% slope criteria only to designated hillside areas as shown on that non-codified map at the time. The mayor and council at that time clarified it was never meant to apply on a citywide basis, but the original ordinance lacked clear standards, leading to an inconsistent application. To resolve all this, what we're looking at is resolving the definition and to also have a map that goes along with that. The pros to this approach, actually the threshold, it's referenced multiple times as I mentioned. Some properties will still need some analysis, but less of them will. Using the 25% threshold supports the general plan goals and policies for hillside protection, and the standard is more clear than the 20%. Additional pros include homeowners and applicants may still have some costs as opposed to no standard. Adopting a hillside map would clarify where the standards apply, and clearly defining a mapping hillside area would reduce confusion, streamline review, and minimize costs and delays. Some of the cons to this, the proposed hillside map may have a simpler slope method than what's currently in place, but still it does help identify hillside properties at the end. And if we were to apply hillside standards with a 25% threshold on a citywide basis, it would require a slope analysis for all projects, increasing costs for non-hillside developments. So this is where I'm going to stop. We're going to work through our questions, and then we'll resume the presentation. So the first policy question is, based on the background information from the development code, how should hillside slopes be defined and applied? Our second question, should the hillside slope definition apply on a citywide basis or only to those areas in a specific map? And third, is there agreement that the 20% is an anomaly, whereas the 25% criteria is more consistently referenced? So these are kind of the 3 things that we wanted to work through.
Okay. I'll bring it back to council for questions, and then I'll ask for public comments, okay? So council, do you have any questions? I don't see anybody in the queue. Nothing? Are you starting to ask a question? You're hemming and hawing.
I'm good for now.
Okay, you're good for now? Everybody good now? Okay, at this time, do we have any public comments on this topic?
Madam Mayor, I don't have any submitted, but it looks like the way we're going, is it okay?
Yeah, if you want to,
public
please
comment
just
can
let me know
step
and I'll
up
call you up to the dais.
That's
no
great.
problem.
Just go.
Cass and Clay?
Thank you, Mayor. I think, and I've said this from the very beginning, even before the council took this on, and part of the problem why we were here is the map was never codified. Mm-hmm. And so whatever you do, the map has to be codified. Because as a former planning commissioner, as a development consultant, one of the first things I do is I go to the land use map and the general plan map, and then I go to the development code. So I believe wholeheartedly that that's how we got in this situation, and how some of the things that we've missed, some of the development that has happened on hillsides, that's probably how that happened, is because it wasn't codified. So to number 2, I think absolutely whatever you do, a map needs to be codified to the code. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Long? Alan wrong? I'm sorry, there's two longs in here. I just saw Dan.
Thank you, Mayor.
You missed that.
I
You said
did.
the long and the short of it.
I'm the long, he's the short. No, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm obviously the older one. And wiser, so just so he knows. You know, we're spending a lot of time on this. For when you boil this down, it's going to affect a few people if we adopt this the way it is. I respect what Mr. Klein had said, but this was a citywide policy. It said it. In fact, in the presentation staff gave to the Planning Commission, that was one of the confusions. It was stated citywide policy. The proposal is to shrink this down and to affect a few, to be more restrictive. That was also said as one of the cons in an early presentation. This would be more restrictive and could cause problems for people that wanted to develop their property. That was an issue. If you're going to fix it for all. Fix it for everyone. First, we need to look at where does this stem from? Why are they doing all of this? Where does it come from? And that's our general plan for statements that were adopted in 1994. The ordinances were put in place and the land use policies were put in place in 1998. I think it's time to reevaluate that. In fact, if we read them today, starts off by first sentence, hillside and ridges are in their natural settings. Natural settings. We need to look at how many of those still exist in the natural setting. Quite a few, and consequently, not because of your policies, but because of MSHCP, most of those have already been conserved. Mission accomplished. Hollingsworth said it best. Claim victory and move on. Mission accomplished. For the few that still have private ridges or hillside maintenance, what I've heard your concerns be is a visual effect, whether it's a wall, a slope, or a ridge. What does it look like? We don't want monstrous buildings. Those are design guidelines, folks. You can put those in place. Here's what the general plan says. Views to the Santa Rosa Plateau occur along the I-15 and 215 freeways, as well as from lands located to the west of the hogbacks. These views are largely undisturbed ridge lines and should be conserved as feasible. It also talks about the natural topography. And here is another one it says to conserve. In the same general plan, first paragraph, the variety of rolling hillsides, mountain ranges, and the valley floors contribute to the unique visual characteristics of Murrieta, the valley floors. Think about this policy. It's your view from the I-215, the I-15, and the land to the west of the hogbacks. That's what it's talking about. I think we've done a good job in some areas. We and prior council, this council, ridgelines and slopes have been preserved thanks to the MSHCP. The views traveling along the 15 and 215, maybe we missed that one a little bit. Time to reevaluate. Thank you.
Thank you. Did anybody else want to speak? No? Okay, I'll bring it back. God bless you. I'll bring it back to council. Yeah. Oh, Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle.
Yeah, thank you for reminding me to put my name in the queue. Just as high level as I can understand this, the ordinance only has to exist because of some vague language in the general plan, correct?
Yeah, there's goals and policies in the general plan that relate back to code that we have that requires careful review of hillside properties.
So the general plan wasn't specific enough to help provide this protection that, to Mr. Long's point, the protection we're seeking is only for a few left even that could fall into this type of situation, I guess.
I mean, there could be, the way it's framed right now, it's fairly broad. So I think there still would be a number of properties that would be evaluated. There is, in some areas, there is, a limited situation, but other areas there's more.
The properties would have to be deemed not already developed, correct?
Well, that's one of the things that we need to clarify on.
Okay.
Does it apply to developed or undeveloped? Yeah.
And Councilmember Lavelle, I would add that to Caston's point, because we never had a map, it did seem to apply citywide. I don't contest what Alan's suggesting, but if we had had a map, I think that would have focused staff on specific properties, fewer properties than citywide. So I think we get back to the same answer.
My other thought on this is that you hear to protect the valley floor, the hillside, the ridge backs, the ridge lines. Murrieta is just those two things. We have a couple ridges over here, one over here, and then the rest of it's the valley, right? And that is the uniqueness and kind of the topography of what we are. And so there are a lot of areas that would fall under this criteria, would be viewed or could be interpreted as a ridge or the view of the valley floor. I agree. I think it needs to be consistent, the messaging. But I'd like to kind of juxtapose what we've already protected versus what we're trying to protect at this point. And is the juice worth the squeeze of having an ordinance versus maybe, Justin, you can help out. Why wouldn't we just update the general plan next cycle?
I think more or less what you're doing is operationalizing the language that's in the general plan. And one perspective on the juice being worth the squeeze is to the extent that there's no additional development left, then no one will be burdened by this. But if you want to hedge your bet that there are a number of properties across these areas that could and likely will develop, and having a standard that takes action based on what the general plan says, to still allow development, but in a more thoughtful way, because slopes and ridges in some of those areas are a little different than some of the flat ground.
Yeah.
This is a way to do that. So I actually prefer to think of the map as giving clarity on all the areas where we know there to be no hillsides. So for all those folks, it's like, we're out.
Yeah.
And this is narrowing the entire city, where every single time staff has to look and say, is it a hillside? And reducing that to a map that's just a subset of the city and saying, we think all the hillsides are contained within this map. And even then, there's a way for an applicant to say, I don't think it applies to me. My little corner of the property doesn't have those slopes exceeding 20 or 25%. So it's really narrowing.
So, but on that point, if we handle it like the applicant would have to make the case why they're not in a hillside,
if they're already in the map. But again, what we don't have today is right now that applies to the entire city. If you have a map, everyone out of that hillside zone knows they're out.
Okay.
You give clarity to all those folks, and then all that's left is the people that are within the hillside area designation of the map.
I think I like that. And I think at that point, if that's what we're talking about, there can't be more than, 10 properties, 10 significant areas of development that could exist?
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm just guessing. But I can't imagine there are not undeveloped hillsides that would fall into this map. Properties, parcels.
That would be outside of the map?
Correct.
Yeah, it's by and large. There's probably maybe over by, the triangle area, there might be a little bit.
And I think I said this last time. I'd want to just be sure, because it's that little of a focus group, we have every single one of those property owners at the table to make sure that this is digestible, clear, and concise on what we're doing, what we're asking, and in these changes. I don't know. But that's all I have.
Hang on, I'll give you.
Can I respond to Councilmember Lavelle?
You sure can. Are you in the queue? Oh, look.
I am.
But you're back. You're
I know, but I
behind
wanna-
Mr. Holiday.
But I want to respond
So,
to his
so you want to go out of order?
comments.
Yes, you can. Just text me. Yeah.
Just text you?
Yes. Councilmember Stone.
So when you're talking, Councilmember Lavelle, let's just say hypothetically there's 10 properties that would fall into this map, okay? And let's just say 50% have already had development, some sort of development happening. And the other 5, are you going to restrict those property owners from building? And is that where the design standards probably would come in to allow them to build?
Yes, I would say if it's that little, that's when we can have a discrete, for lack of better words, intimate conversation with each of those scenarios. And then are we using the GIS software? Are we actually doing a measurement of the slope and how these are factored in?
We're not there yet. We're not, that's our 4th question.
And that's a focus, we'll talk about
We'll
that
talk about
a little
that
bit
in a
further
minute.
down.
But
yeah.
that's the thought I would have going into considering those 5 and what they are and how we're going to define them.
Thank you, Mayor.
Okay, you're welcome. Councilmember Holliday?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I certainly support the 25% number as far as the definition.
Sorry.
Being the threshold at where you would consider that some design guidelines need to be different. As far as the map goes, I agree with Councilmember Lavelle, is why would we incorporate the whole city into having to look at, because when I was developing my property, the first thing they said, well, are you in hillside ordinance? I'm like, I don't know. They said, we have to do a hillside survey. I said, I looked at it. I know it doesn't meet the guidelines because it didn't have that big a slope on it. But since it applied to the whole city, it's something that had to be considered. And I saw somewhere, not in these slides, but in the presentation, the staff presentation, it said that the original definition was greater than 25% average slopes based upon that formula, or a change of height of 30 feet. Well, that, to me, that definition is too broad, because what if I had 50 acres and from one end of the property to the other, it elevated by 50 feet? It doesn't exceed 25%, doesn't exceed 20%.
Right.
But I got a 30% change in elevation.
Right.
I mean, that definition needs to be cleaned up. And I think that the thing, and I have said this from day one since I was elected and we had one of these workshops, which is now going on 3 years, that there needs to be design guidelines between developed properties and undeveloped properties. And while the MSHCP currently owns a bunch of those, and I don't see that changing in my lifetime, and to Councilmember Lavelle's point, it's 10 properties. Well, it's not when you count all the RCA properties. Right. There's a lot more properties. They're just not going to develop because they're conserved land. But what happens if that changes? What happens? Well, under our current president, he'd like to do away with all of it. But so fortunately that he hasn't reversed things here in California yet. Otherwise, the RCA could go away and all those properties available to be developed. So I think we need to look at the future, the long-term future, and say, if that happened to turn over to private hands, what would the design guidelines be for them to develop a house or whatever else on it? So I think it makes sense to have this. It just needs to, we need to probably clean up a little bit of the general plan language in our next go around, which is coming up pretty soon, right? Next year, David?
Yes, we're working on a general plan cleanup, but we don't have any updates to the hillside language programmed in that update.
Maybe something we might want to add to it, but I'll leave that to you and Justin to discuss the timing on that. Because it does say things about, preserving the view of the valley floor and certain things that because we didn't have the codified map, as Mr. Klein said, it wasn't applied. And so there's certain things that we can't undo. So we have to recognize that reality and then move forward with what makes the best sense. And I think design guidelines are probably the best way to do it, saying if you're one of these parcels that we've designated in the map, then these design guidelines apply. One set for already developed properties and one set for undeveloped. My 2 cents.
Thank you, Mr. Holliday. I also agree with the 25% threshold, and I believe the map has to agree with the plan. It just has to. I mean, it makes no sense for it not to. And what Councilmember Holliday has said is right. That conserved land could go away. It's not guaranteed that it's going to stay that way. So we're working on all of this and putting all this time and effort into this. We need to also look into the future should that land become available for development. I think that's extremely important that we keep that in the back of our minds somewhere. Mr. Long, I know that you want to say something. I'll give you just a few minutes if you want to make another point. You're welcome to do so. And Mr. Klein, since I'm giving him the opportunity, you're also welcome to come back if you want to. Hello again.
Hello, thank you.
You're welcome.
Two important things that were said, and Councilmember Holliday hit on some of it, is there is a difference of developed and undeveloped, and the general plan does say in the natural settings. Mm-hmm. So it's already distinct between the two, so should your policy, whatever you choose to adopt. And I do believe design guidelines is a way to help, not harm. If you're going to do this, it is another layer of bureaucracy. It's another layer of restrictions to a select group of individuals, property owners within the city. Right now it's citywide. But if that is the way you choose to go, you should put something in there that helps them develop, especially if they've already been developed. That would be a very important piece to this. By the way, I want to commend staff. None of what I said was directed in a negative way at staff. They walked into this. Again, this was from 1994. It's been selectively enforced throughout the city, and they walked in and tried to clean this up and have done an extraordinary job of trying to, make lemonade out of lemons here. So I just wanted to make sure that they understood that. And I tried to take a swing at this to create a policy, but you can't. If you look at the general plan, on what the general plan says, it's mission impossible. So I appreciate their time and yours. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mr. Klein, did you want to come back up for a minute?
I agree with Alan. The only thing I'll say in terms of defensive staff, I absolutely agree with him, and how we got here was a project that I represented on, God bless you, on Jackson and Nutmeg. God bless you. Did you want to take a recess? No, I don't like to take recess. And as we discovered with that plan that was approved by the Planning Commission, and Lavelle, I think you were on the commission at the time, it was determined by our land use council that as written, the hillside ordinance is indefensible for a landowner because of the way you determine or calculate, the slope and how many decimal points do you take it out. And we talked to Mr. Mailing, and there was no definitive answer. So, staff absolutely walked into this, and they've done a great job. And so, I just wanted to echo what Alan said. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I'm going to bring it back up to council to talk to staff. What direction do we want to give them, council? I'm going to start with Councilmember Stone. Do you have a comment? Direction? Guidance?
Thank you, Mayor. I think I've been very consistent on my messaging. I think you know where I stand, and that is I'm a property rights advocate. And for me, for you to take those rights away is unconscionable. I think how we can mitigate for that is through the design standards. And that is what I hope that my colleagues will support me on this. And that's where I stand. So thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. Mayor Pro Tem?
Thank you. I agree. If design standards are how this gets simplified and makes it easier for people to do stuff with the stuff they own, awesome. The thing, even reading all this several times, having this is probably the fifth meeting that I've been part of, I still haven't seen like a was-is, right? We have this is why, a crosswalk of the general plan and objective gaps identified and how the ordinance remedies those gaps, I guess. Just for clarity, I know that's probably to interpret that and make it easy to decipher may be the biggest challenge of all of this, hence the problem existing since 1990, or when Mr. Long was on council and he pulled the pin in this grenade. It's going to take someone that has a really good way to teach or explain things like this. And Mr. Clifton, that may be where you come in handy.
Turned it off. Councilmember Holliday.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. To the questions before us, based on the background, should this be applied citywide or specifically to the hillsides? I think it, as I said before, should be applied to the hillsides. And like I said from the beginning, it's got to be designated differently for undeveloped versus developed, and I think we all agree that 25% criteria is the consistent criteria we should use. And I just wanted to clarify Councilmember Stone's comment. I don't think anyone, and not that I've heard, staff or otherwise, is talking about not letting property owners develop. I don't think we're concerned about attacking property owner development rights, which I agree with you 100%.
But I also don't want to put, a policy or an ordinance in place that makes it so restrictive.
Absolutely.
That's what I don't want for property rights.
But that development guidelines will come back before us.
Okay, thank you.
And I think we also want consistency. We don't want a hodgepodge. We don't want our hillsides cut away. We want to keep the topography. We want it to look like what we envision. And so I agree with everything.
But also, Mayor, Councilmember Holliday, what concerns me is that right now this is a citywide ordinance, and now you want to condense this into approximately 10 properties, let's say. So now well, that's with the RCA property, correct. So I'm talking about leaving the RCA property out of it. There's probably about 10 properties. And again, I just want to make sure that we don't put so many restrictive policies in place that the property owners cannot build on their property. And I agree with you, by the way. There should be a set of standards for those that have already had development, already happening on the property, and those that in the future. The one thing that I don't want, and it may not apply to this, but I have PTSD with the state of California on the high-density development. Of course, that's not something that we want, but I do believe that if somebody has 30 acres, and as long as there is a nice design standards that meets our quality of life and allows the property owner to build without egregious policies put in place, that's what I don't want. So thank you.
I just have a quick follow-up question on the rare scenario that the RCA properties or the MACP designated areas could be developed or they're sold off or whatever. Is it possible that we make this map without those included and then just kind of an addendum? So in the case of that happening, which is extremely rare, then this now applies. I guess just to save time, because we're talking about such a small area when you leave those areas out.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. I just don't know why leaving them out would be beneficial.
I would say that I would support that,
yeah,
just as long as there doesn't make it any more complicated than it has to be by including them.
It doesn't.
Okay, just want to clarify.
So to reiterate what we want, City Manager, I'm going to leave that up to you.
Yeah, no problem. So bearing in mind that we're really starting at the beginning, and currently the hillside ordinance applies everywhere. If we make this change, the everywhere is reduced to only the areas where we know there to be hillsides. Okay? The second thing you've done is you've decided it should be a 25% standard, not a 20%. So that excludes a few more properties that might be at 20, 21, 22. So you've narrowed the world where this could apply in two different ways right off the bat. It's going to give some additional clarity to applicants. They can still, within those areas, determine, as we get into slope formulas a little later, that while they're in the map, their specific property actually doesn't qualify, and then they're also removed. So you've done a lot to take a lot of people that would have been subject to this and take them out of that bureaucratic process altogether. As we move forward, there are going to be some additional questions, like should specific plan areas be included, or did we already deal with hillside matters during that specific plan? Those could also then be excluded. That world gets smaller and smaller, and then eventually you'll get to the questions like, now that we know who's in, and we've reduced it to a very small part of the city, now what is different about those compared to everybody else? What standards are reasonable to make sure that there's a purpose to a hillside ordinance and that we're honoring the general plan while also enabling development and not getting in their way? So that's still to come, but we're hearing that you're anxious to have that part of the conversation.
Staff, are you on board?
Yes, sounds good.
Great.
Thank you.
Let's move on to topic number 2.
All right, switching gears here. We'll focus on specific plans. At a previous workshop, a speaker identified specific plans in relation to the hillside area overlay. This could mean making properties within specific plans subject to the hillside ordinance. Or alternatively, it can mean identifying specific plans on the hillside map in order to make it clear that those areas are not subject to the ordinance because the hillside standards were addressed as part of the specific plan. So a pro with having specific plans within the hillside overlay map is it can provide further clarity on what standards apply with a corresponding cross-reference and footnotes. So we could cross-reference stuff, however that ends up, so that there's clarity to the customer. Some cons to this. There might still be some confusion about what applies when. And then making specific plan areas subject to the hillside ordinance risk overturning criteria that was previously analyzed within the context of the development area, say when the specific plan was adopted 10, 20 years ago. So that there might be something confusing there, potentially. So this is what staff's recommending on this topic. Staff agrees that mapping these specific plans along with the overlay area would be the most effective approach with cross-referencing. To support this, staff recommends including a footnote within the draft ordinance directing a user to consult the applicable specific plan for the criteria. Staff recommends that specific plans that are not subject to the hillside ordinance because the hillside standards were already addressed within the specific plan process. So there was already an analysis that occurred when that specific plan was adopted. So these are our 2 key policy questions for our next discussion here. Does the council concur with the proposed approach to incorporate specific plans into the hillside overlay exhibit map along with corresponding cross-reference framework? And second, does the council concur that the specific plans would supersede the general hillside ordinance if and when there's a conflicting standard for hillside development in there?
Okay, we'll bring it back. Oh, we're going to start with Councilmember Holliday.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. A couple of questions. You said that on slide 10, or slide 20, page 10 on my page, but slide 20, that making specific plan areas subject to the hillside ordinance risks overturning criteria that were previously made. Is that even possible? Is that even legal? They have a specific plan. They have development rights. How could you overturn it?
Yeah, that's the risk. That's a legal risk. So I don't think we'd want to go down there, but it's just a question.
So basically what you're saying is you would be creating something that says it does apply when they have development rights. It says it doesn't apply.
Yeah, essentially, if there's a criteria in there and that was already analyzed with relation to a hillside condition, and that's the baseline, that's what we kind of have to go with.
Right. So it would be silly for us to create a policy that creates a legal conundrum.
It was suggested at the last workshop as another option, but I think that kind of answers the question.
Okay. And then when you're reviewing specific plans for the hillside ordinance, what criteria has been used in the past?
General plan consistency analysis. So we'd be looking at all the general plan policies and.
We're using 20%, 25%?
I think, like with Murrieta Hills, I think we used.
Yeah, for staff, we start with a steep slope analysis. I think generally that has been the confusion, which to use. Generally, I've used 25% when I've reviewed specific plans.
Okay.
I would just further note that when you're looking at a specific plan, you usually have a larger acreage. And you're looking at the flatter areas. It's cheaper to develop the flatter areas. The only time you're actually going to affect the steeper slopes is for water tanks because of the elevation change. But once you've codified that, or once city council's approved that plan, you're done. You're locked in. So you can't just come back in and do a substantial conformance to impact that area. You have to come back with a specific plan amendment and bring that back before the city council. So I think that's the good news about tightening it up with a specific plan. Don't open that up with another policy or map.
And so going forward, someday, hopefully in my lifetime, when we get this hillside ordinance done, is that the criteria that will then be used when you're doing a new specific plan?
Yeah, I think we'll do as we've been doing, treat it independent. If it has steep slopes on it, we have to factor that in. We're going to have properties with different slopes, so we have to be careful on where we put development. But what you'll find in specific plans is we're looking for the flatter areas routinely. And the outcome is that by default, you do save the steeper slopes.
Could I just add, Councilmember Holliday? So I think one of the good things about our, general plan is it's not, there's really not a lot of detail in it. And by default, it's really the hillside standards that backfill what the intent of the general plan is. So if a specific plan exceeded the requirements of our ordinance, it wouldn't necessarily be a conflict because we're trying to line it up against the general plan. The specific plan creates its own ordinance.
Right.
And as long as it's not in conflict with the general plan, the city council would be able to approve it. It might create some additional environmental issues, but those are not a regulation. Those are environmental issues under CEQA or the MSHCP.
And my last question, are there any areas left that have slopes that could be in a new specific plan?
Let's see, we were looking at a specific plan north of Clinton Keith Road, west of the 215. And we were going to have some sort of analysis with that. So yeah, that was.
I thought Murrieta Hills covered that whole area.
South of there.
South of there, gotcha.
Yeah.
We also have Mr. Senator Hollingsworth.
Yeah.
He had done a pre-application for a specific plan. He may or may not come back.
Understood. All right, thank you. It's all the questions I have.
Okay, we're moving on to Mayor Pro Tem LaBelle.
I think Mr. Holliday covered both. I would just say that specifically the specific plan is the source of truth in that discussion, and that we've done all the good work on those, and there is no potential gaps that we could go back to the ordinance, but that's all I had.
Okay. Councilmember Stone, did you have anything at this time? Okay, this time I'm going to ask for public comment. So who wants to go first? Oh, Mr. Klein. You jumped up first, so you did. You're next.
So yes, David is correct. It would require a specific plan amendment, which you certainly have the right to do. We're all presupposing that the current existing specific plans were analyzed under the hillside ordinance, the existing hillside ordinance. And as we know by what's built today, there were some development that should have been analyzed and perhaps shouldn't have been built, and there's others that, so, it begs the question. And then, if you're going to amend it to 25%, was the specific plan, and I'll just say west of Hayes Avenue, was that analyzed? And if it was it analyzed at 20% or 25%? So I don't see how you adopt what I think you're going to adopt and you don't open up that specific plan if you find that area, and there are hillsides in that specific plan that, based on my four-wheeling, I would have to say that they're greater than 25%. So the question begs is that worth it for you five to open that up and look at it, or potentially have development like what's going on south of Old Town Temecula? So my opinion, and I think the person they're referring to on the slide was my comment, is I think you need to open that up and take a look at it and potentially do a specific plan amendment, and the new hillside ordinance needs to apply to that if appropriate. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Klein. Mr. Long, did you want to speak? Mr. Long or Mr. Long?
Yeah, slight one go back, but there's a nexus to this one and to the previous map. You did a great idea is to put a footnote with specific plans. I believe they should move on. But I think if we're not explicitly clear on the map we talked about earlier, that development shall be allowed on ridgelines and slopes that are already disturbed and developed, you will have confusion for the next staff. Maybe not this staff, but the next staff. So maybe on that map where you're coloring specific plans a certain color with a footnote, you also color those sloped areas that have been developed with a footnote, and then development shall be allowed following these design guidelines. Otherwise, the next planning staff that comes in, all they know is, oh, you're in the map. So the burden's going to be on me to prove otherwise how I can develop because I'm in the map. So just as a comment there.
Okay.
As far as the specific plan, I'm a little different than Casson. I do agree that there's been quite a few, not just specific plans, development as a whole, where this wasn't applied to. But they've been through that. They've gone through it. If they have an approved specific plan, I'd be very hesitant on reopening that. I think you open up a can of worms. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Holliday, first of all, is there any other public comment? None? Okay, we're going to move it back up to council. Mr. Holliday, you're up.
So Mr. Klein mentioned about requiring a specific plan amendment. We don't have the discretion to do that, correct? If somebody has a specific plan, we can't force them to do amendment, can we?
Well, I'm going to say it depends. There's going to be, and I'm just speaking generally, there could be areas within a specific plan that are undeveloped. And so to the extent that you're not affecting somebody's vested property rights, you probably have a good shot at making that amendment.
So for the part of the specific plan that already has rights to develop, that's locked in. But if they had a hillside that they wanted to develop new stuff on, they don't have the right to do that.
Well, if the specific plan allows whatever development, I mean, that's what it allows. But if they want to exceed what the specific plan allows, then they'd have to come in and do a specific plan amendment.
And if they came in and did that, again, that's their decision, not ours. We can't make them change their specific plan at our discretion.
In my opinion, I think it would be very difficult.
Yeah. Does our city attorney agree with that?
To unilaterally do it without their input would be possibly a takings, but there could be certain ways you could structure things without that occurring.
But for the areas that are undeveloped in a specific plan, if they wanted to develop those in the future, we can apply whatever design guidelines or standards to that new area.
Well, if you change the standards that apply, that's when the takings issue could arise, where they could say, before I could do X, and now you're only allowing me to do half of X.
No, I'm talking about other areas that we didn't give them discretion to build on.
That right now is not allowed at all?
Right.
So yeah, if you open it up, you
Okay.
could enforce new rules.
I do like Alan Long's thought about having the map color-coded for developed versus disturbed versus undisturbed properties. I think that's a good idea, because why we're doing that for the specific plans, we're doing that for the MSHCP parts by identifying them. And if we knew how many parcels this actually affected that aren't RCA conserved at the moment, you could almost list the parcel numbers instead of colors coded on a map.
To my left, we have Cameron with our GIS department. We have a live map with all this kind of scenario type of data. So if we could pivot to him, that would be great.
One point to clarify, though, for us, so by disturbed, if you mean developed with a structure,
yes,
that's easier than trying to figure out if the county allowed, some grading on a property.
Developed versus undeveloped.
Thank you.
Thank you for the clarification.
Did you get that? What they were just talking about?
Developed versus undeveloped.
Developed
It has a structure on
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
Okay, I just want to make sure you caught that. Thank you.
So in this map,
If you zoom in a little bit, it'll start. Yeah, there we go.
there we go.
Yep. So the,
I see the RCA owned parcels there off of east of Whitewood.
So,
And
yeah.
now there is, I notice on this map, there's that bottom yellow one. It's, you see see that track there? That's a track that will never be developed because it's owned by RCA, unless RCA goes away. Somebody put a map on that, and then RCA bought it, or they sold it to RCA because they had to. And yet we still show a map on there that could be a housing tract because they have the right to do so.
Let me take a shot at this, Chris. So the properties were legally created.
Right.
But as part of the general plan cleanup, that area is going to get have a different general plan land use as open space.
So that track map, because I can't tell you, this is in my district, how many people have called, it's like, there's houses going in there? And I'm like, no, it's owned by RCA.
At some point, we could do what we call reversion to acreage, and maybe like puts it all back together in one piece, just as a future project, maybe.
Okay, but if we look at the parcels that are in the hillside ordinance, if you zoom out just a bit, that aren't owned by RCA, it's probably not many. And like I say, would it make, I guess is a question for staff, would it make more sense to just list the APNs versus the color coding on the map? Say these APNs are developed and these APNs are undeveloped, and that way there's no confusion.
I would just lend back to you, Planning Commissioner, that with tools like SB9 and other types of subdivisions, APNs would change over time. And so I think a map to back up the APNs would be helpful, just because quite often, if you look at a property that's 10 years old, it probably has under a different APN number, just for district
APNs
development.
do change all the time, it's true.
But just that we could probably do a combination of the two, just for expediency.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, yes, you can.
Just real quick. Can you go back up to Greer Ranch, actually?
So that way.
The greatest district in the city.
Oh, excuse me.
The first. No. Can you zoom in on essentially
Not your house.
my house, basically? Yeah. Right south of Greer Ranch. I just want to see. It looked like it was saying
Yeah,
That's saying I'm undeveloped. Where is that? Let's see.
Orange.
Yeah. Wait. Don't zoom in too close. I don't know what I was doing in the backyard. Okay, no, I think we're good. That's developed.
Yeah.
Okay. Awesome.
Yeah.
The tool works.
Yep. Blue hatch is developed, red hatch is undeveloped.
Councilmember Stone, did you have any comments? Not at this time, okay. Do we have clear direction for staff?
Can I rebuttal?
A rebuttal or just another comment?
Well, no rebuttal.
Oh, you want to rebuttal him? Yes? If I let you, then I have to let Alan, so keep it short for me, would you please? Thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So a couple of things. I think there needs to be a distinction about developed and or graded, because exactly how we got here, the parcel that was the nexus of this was graded for Nutmeg to come through and was graded for Jackson to go through, yet it was still, and then it was graded up above also, yet it was still found to be in the hillside ordinance. And let's talk about specific plans, right? And whether or not, in terms of density and whether or not they have a right. Hypothetically speaking, there is a specific plan that has a density that cannot be built. They cannot meet it because of federal and MSHC and biological, right? So we know that the previous statements made here today are inaccurate, right? I understand we're trying to make 30,000 feet, but you know, as long as we're talking about it, let's speak in facts. So where would that potential developer want to transfer that density? And does that mean that they have the right to transfer that density to a hillside? So again, I think it begs the question that it needs to be addressed, at least needs to be looked at and analyzed. We can't just say, oh, well, it's a specific plan, and no, they're guaranteed that density, because they absolutely are not. And if they are, prove me wrong, because there's federal law and there's state law. U.S. Fish and Wildlife, California Department of Fish and Game, Army Corps, regional water, I can go down the line. MSHCP, and they're not going to get their density. So what are we going to do? We're going to give them higher density on the hillsides because they're guaranteed that density? All questions that I believe need to be analyzed, or else what we're going to end up with, something that looks like our neighbor to the south up against the hills. Thank you.
Thank you. Oh, boy, here we go.
I'll be quick.
Very quick, please. Thank you.
No, of course. You are given direction for an ultimate decision down the road, so there was some things have changed. We asked about development and grading, then we determined, well, we're talking about a structure on it. You're making a decision here. You got to base your decision on the general plan. The general plan says natural topography, natural slope. So I'd beg to differ. If I was a property owner and I had graded my property for a future home, that would be disturbed property. That would not meet the intent of the general plan. You can make whatever decision you want and give direction however you want, but I just want to make that clarifying point. Your general plan says natural setting, natural slope.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Holiday, looked like you want to speak. See, I knew it before you even put your name in.
You're psychic.
I am. Go for it.
Yeah, specific plans create a unique challenge, as Mr. Klein said, because they have rights to develop, but there are restrictions that have come into place since they haven't developed that have to be applied. And when they come, they will have to come back in for a specific plan amendment. At that point, I would think that this hillside ordinance would apply. Does staff agree or disagree with that?
So the specific plan would be analyzed in the context of the general plan.
Which would include the new ordinance that we're creating?
Not necessarily, because we'd have to look at the specific plan development standards that are contained in it and determine if the change, the specific plan amendment can modify whatever it wants to, and as long as it's consistent with the general plan, then like I mentioned in my previous comments, you've got environmental issues, which is kind of like one pot, and then you've got specific plan like development standards, which are going to be compared to the general plan for consistency. So if the specific plan is doing something that's not consistent with the general plan, then we would the staff would flag that. If it's proposing, a specific plan can essentially propose its own set of development standards, and as long as it's not in conflict with the general plan, and there are, as I mentioned earlier, there's not a lot of detail in the general plan, then we would have to compare what the specific plan was doing to the general plan. I mean, that's really without more specific context, it's as close as I can get for you.
I understand. And again, I go back to comment that we probably need to clean up that general plan language to make it consistent with where we are today. And just because it hasn't been applied evenly across time doesn't mean that we don't want to still move forward with the same concept of preserving those hillsides. Yeah, I agree 100% that, I mean, we can't undo what's been done. And so we have to live with those issues that have been developed.
And move forward with a plan that makes sense and can be applied properly.
So just to add a little bit more to your comment, I mean, if we started pulling in some of the development standards from the ordinance and putting those into the general plan, that's how you get there. But it's a double-edged sword because the more specificity that you add, the greater risk you run of finding out the project isn't consistent with the general plan.
Yeah, so obviously we don't want to happen. What Mr. Klein said is that all of a sudden they come back and say, well, I can't develop in all these places, so I'm going to pick this hillside and I'm going to put this 18 unit per acre thing on there because I got density across this huge area that now got squeezed into a little spot.
It's a tough, there can be conflicting provisions of the general plan, and that becomes really difficult. And so we get into a process where you start having to weigh the priorities of the general plan, and at the end of the day, it's going to land with the city council if we ever got into that kind of a situation.
Do all specific plan amendments come before us?
Yes. Okay. Planning Commission first, then City Council.
Okay. Any other questions? Councilmember Stowe.
City Manager Clifton.
Well, you can't take my line.
I want you to think outside the box and fix this.
I second that.
Third.
That's what you get paid the big bucks for, sir.
So I'm not sure exactly what that means, but I think if I were to try to synthesize the two competing points here, one is that we've already done a specific plan in areas where we've considered kind of everything in the context of that proposed project or that proposed site location. If it's consistent with the general plan, it could do something a little different, but it's being viewed through a narrow lens, this specific property in this specific context. So those tend to be better decisions, at least conceptually, than the ones that are meant to be a more blunt instrument, a tool or a policy, an ordinance that applies to the entire city. So I think in part, staff's recommendation to say specific plans should supersede any revised hillside ordinance is to say, we've looked at more details in this specific plan, and therefore, even though we might miss something here or there, we're better off saying that's been reviewed under a microscope, while this other hillside ordinance is viewed, through something else, through the window, right? So, but the conflict there is, as Mr. Klein said, we could have missed something. We could have not looked very closely. But we did go through a rather elaborate process to say, here's what you can do at this location because we've looked strictly at this location. So I think what staff is really saying is that that's a risk that kind of always exists, that you didn't get the specific plan exactly right, but because it's more specific and more narrow and more focused, we should leave those plans as they are. And this hillside standard should apply only to the areas outside of the specific plans.
Okay.
That's not outside the box, but if that helps at all to rephrase.
Does that help staff? Are we agreeing on that?
Yeah. If I could add one thing to that, most of our specific plans are built out. There's only a few lots left, like in Kerr Ranch, that are estate. It would be a very small area if there's.
Well, we have the whole vineyard.
And they'll have to do their analysis.
That is trying to morph into something it never was intended to be. So just to clarify, Madam Mayor, are we agreeing that specific plans are not going to be applicable to the hillside ordinance when we finally adopt it, but it is going to be on the map and highlighted as a specific plan with a footnote that it doesn't apply?
That's the way I understand it. Is that what you, yes?
And then I'd also like to get that different colors for the undeveloped versus developed. Are you in agreement with that?
Absolutely, because that would make it much easier to understand the map itself.
I didn't want that to get lost.
Okay.
And
Oh, yes, Mr.
So I know we've touched on developed and undeveloped, and I would defer to our planning team, but I think there's a lot of layers there, even how you define disturbed or undisturbed, large parcels, small parcels. So what I'm hearing, and just make sure I'm clear, we're initially saying there's value in distinguishing between developed and undeveloped, but we haven't decided yet what that means in the context of the hillside ordinance. That's a conversation we'd still like to have with council. Correct. Should the standards be different? Should they exist in one place, not the other, equally in both? And we'll answer that later on. For now, we're just really doing what's already in our GIS layer, which is distinguishing between developed and undeveloped properties.
Correct.
Okay.
Good. Okay. We're going to move on to the next question.
Okay.
Topic, I should say, not question. Sorry.
Yeah, this is our last one for today. So pivoting here, let's see. We're going to talk about GIS, and it can quickly generate maps, and it's an excellent tool. So some of the pros with it, it provides efficiency, and large areas can be analyzed quickly. It provides objectivity. It combines easily with other spatial data, and it provides greater precision with a subject site, especially when you're getting a high-res data source. And then city staff does use it on a daily basis here. Some of the cons to it, there could be some slow algorithms that vary slightly between the software vendors, and that may produce some slight different results. There could be some interpolation errors when converting contour data into GIS data, and there might be some small distortions. Parcel boundaries rarely align perfectly with the raster grids, and that could create some issues at edge of parcels. However, to solve those issues with the GIS as a primary review vehicle, we're proposing an alternative option using an average slope formula in conjunction with the use of AutoCAD. Average slope formula is a commonly used formula. We currently have it in the code. Other cities in Riverside County that use it are cities of Menifee and Riverside, and also the county, to quantify the overall steepness of a parcel of land. This measurement is critical for determining land suitability for development, enforcing hillside regulations, and managing environmental impacts. And this is just our current formula. And this is just using GIS and an average slope formula. So let me, I skipped over a slide here. Some of the pros with it: it provides a simple and easy to calculate method using a basic elevation distance data, it provides clear single metric, comparing terrain steepness, especially if there's a disagreement among experts. It can be efficient in the early planning process and screening out issues. AutoCAD and similar drafting programs are widely available in the industry. And this is just an example of using that GIS and average slope formula with AutoCAD. Some cons to this: it does require survey data sometimes that may have masked local variations on steep sections of a site. It may not accurately represent irregular or complex topography. Results can vary depending on data resolution or calculation method. So our recommendation is first to use GIS as a primary vehicle for looking at a site. And then secondly, if there's a disagreement, you could go to the average slope formula with AutoCAD. So if there's any disagreement, there's a second option. And our policy question with this is there concurrence to use a city GIS generated slope map to replace the average slope formula? But we'll keep the average slope formula there as an alternative with a CAD-based program if there's a disagreement. So that's it in a nutshell. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions from council right now? Yes, Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle, I knew that was coming too.
Not a question, a comment, surprise. I just want to say, yes, I think those two options are great because, but I do have a question on the process, right? So then is the applicant can test the GIS findings and they go to the AutoCAD formula?
That's correct.
And then what happens?
Our city engineer will look at the data that's provided and what they're proposing, and with their background, they would determine if it's a hillside condition or not.
And they would, our side would have to then determine the GIS software was incorrect based on the formula that's very objective.
The sourcing might have some error with it, or maybe it's out of date, or there's some, there might be some discrepancy there.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's it.
Nobody else? Okay, I'm going to open up to anybody public comment. Who's going to jump up? Oh, I'm going to go with the lady in the audience. Would that be okay, gentlemen? Hello. Oh.
Hello, good evening. Sherry Monroe, Forum Engineering and Development, and I've been dying to do this. Two longs do not make a right. I'm here all night, folks.
That was great.
Okay, I just, as we start discussing this, want some clarification on whether or not, because we're talking about a slope analysis, which is something we commonly use in engineering in the counties, cities, everywhere, to determine the best place to build on a piece of property. This kind of sounds citywide versus the other option that we talked about of specific areas mapped out. What I don't want to see is having to do this if we have the mapped hillside areas. Leave those go. If you're in the area, you can contest it, or have an argument with Bob, which is always fun. In the areas where there might be some subjectiveness, but outside of that, I don't think we want to do this.
Agree. I think we agree with you up here. Yes, we do. Okay, we're going to go right up the line. That'll work out really good.
Finally.
Good evening, Mr. Long.
Good evening. Thank you for having me for today. It's an honor to be in front of you. I got a couple comments back to the hillside standards. Most of my comments were shared by My brother, Alan Long, he kind of stole my thunder, so I let him have it. But on this one, this is actually, I'm pretty passionate about this one here, and I think staff's going and council's going down the path where I think it makes sense, is giving us the option. A lot of times information in GIS, whatever it is flat out wrong. In fact, the map you guys were showing earlier, where you had the hashed area, you have the yellow and the red, I'm looking at it, or a few parcels that I own are wrong. So right away, there's always information that's not accurate within the database. So we'd like that option to clean that up. So I do favor staff's recommendation to give us that option to contest the GIS database, just because sometimes it's not always completely accurate. Going back to the comments of the hillside standards, is I'll leave you the quick analysis or analogy that my brother and I were speaking about, is going back to the general plan in 1994, 1997. The fact of the matter is you have a foundation that's cracked, it's crumbling and old and out of date, and you're trying to do an addition to that building. You probably need to redo that foundation before you build that house. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Klein.
Thank you. Two questions. So if it's 25%, is that 25.00% or less? Is it 25.49% or less, and we round down? So I think that question needs to be specified, because again, I'm speaking from experience. This is how we got here in the past, and it was exactly that. And then, let's say, I think it was Councilman Holliday said 30 acres, right? So let's say you have 30 acres, it's a mile long, and most of it's flat, but then you've got a peak in there that's 25%. So is it the average of all of it, or do you have to stay back from that peak? So those are all questions that need to be asked.
I'm sorry, I'm going to let Chris answer that.
I can clarify on the parcel. So the idea
Thank you, Mr. Klein.
Say if you got a large parcel and there's areas that are less than 25% for some reason, those would be excluded out. We're only talking about the areas that are 25% or greater.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Long.
And the decimal points?
Where's the decimal point going?
It'd be.
What about the other question Mr. Klein had about the 30 acres and?
Decimal points.
It'd be measured at 25.0%.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Long, you're up.
And the tie always goes to the applicant. Just saying. It's the property. We have an opportunity here, make it easier for them. This last one is regarding technology, and I'm all in favor of that. However, I have been proven many times over that technology isn't always the right answer. While I was in that seat, we bought 3 different CAD systems, none of which did everything they promised to do, and we always ended up having to correct some things. I think Bob can contest when we bought the new synchronization of our lights that we're supposed to learn from each other, learn the patterns. What didn't quite do it like it was sold to us. So we've always had to come in and fix a few things, and I think that could happen here. I looked at the map as well, the 1 or 2 workshops ago, and they had property shaded in there that I knew for a fact did not have 25% or even 20% slopes, but it still was shaded. It got lumped into, now that may have been a first try at it, but it's wrong sometimes. So I think you need to be clear on this one as well, that you do have the opportunity. It's not a set in stone. You got to be crystal clear for the next staff. Like I said, they're going to say, here's what we have. You're in the map. You have slope on it. Therefore, you can or cannot build. We need to be very clear that the applicant does have another option. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will agree that other option is vital. We must have that because, as we all know, technology isn't always perfect. And just what happened yesterday with the iCloud was a big mess. And so I don't want anybody to not understand what's going on because what they're seeing is wrong and there's not a way to come up with another avenue. Having this backup plan is a good backup plan. Yeah. So I do agree with that. Yeah. Mr. Holliday, you're back in the queue.
Thank you. So just to clarify, if a slope is 50.000% or greater, you can't build on it.
That's correct.
That's our current standard.
That's our current standard.
And from the direction we gave tonight, it's 25.000. So if it's 24.9999999, it doesn't apply.
So it's between 25 and 50% is a hillside condition.
That's what I'm saying. So it's 24.99999 it doesn't fall in it.
25 does.
Correct?
We rounded the whole number. I mean, I could talk with engineering on that, but yeah.
I would say that it has to be 25.0, not rounded.
Not rounded.
25.0 or greater.
Okay.
We concur.
Okay, good.
And then, and obviously if it's 49,999,999, that still falls under the hillside and can be developed under the hillside ordinance. You have to be 50.0 or greater to be precluded from developing completely. So that clarifies Mr. Klein's question on the decimal point. The other thing that we talked about at one of the previous workshops is that, yes, that we were going to use GIS, and yes, or using the alternative approach to our city engineer. If the data is wrong, it's wrong. Obviously, our city engineer would acknowledge it was wrong and say, okay, yeah, you're not, or you are. But we also talked about having it being able to be appealed to council. Is that not on the table any longer? Did that get lost in translation somewhere?
The specific slope measurement is not.
Whether they're in the hillside area or not.
So the hearing body, I guess, would have to determine that. So as we are analyzing a project, if there's a disagreement over whether or not a property's in or out of the project, I mean, if we made a determination, they're going to have to wait until they get in front of the hearing body to make that determination. There's not an interim.
Would that be
process.
The Planning Commission?
Yes.
Okay. But that appeal process is available?
Yes.
Okay.
Cool. Okay. Any more questions from us? Do we have a direction? I do believe we gave you straight direction on that. Now, before we close out the workshop, I'm going to ask one last time if any public have any comments on items we did not discuss today. Nobody's jumping up. That's good. Thank you. And so I'll bring it back to staff, or just to council for one last discussion. If you have anything you want to say or add. I see none. I am going to.
Madam Mayor?
Yes. Yeah. Oh, Lori, you put in. I'm sorry.
Thank
I
you
didn't
so
see that
much.
in there. There you go.
I just want to say thank you so much for today. I actually learned a little bit more, and I love these workshops. So thank you so much for speaking in layman terms as well. I'm glad that you dumbed it down, if you know what that means. And
where is he?
Yeah. So thank you. This was really amazing, and I want to thank our city manager and our mayor for bringing this forward. And I also want to thank the 4 people that are always here. And again, I always learn so much from all of you. So I appreciate your voice. I appreciate that you're hearing us as council, and your input is so vital for us in making the best decision that we can make. So again, I just wanted to say thank you to staff. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I do know that you're going to be coming back with more. I hope that our public and everybody liked the format, the way we did this, and gave everybody a chance to speak on every topic. I think that gave us an opportunity to really dive into each topic, so I hope that that was good for everybody. At this time, I'm going to call for a recess until 5:30.
Is there a reason why?
Thank you. I'm going to call to order the October, pardon me. This does not make sense. Today is the 21st. So I'm going to call to order the closed session for the October 21st meeting. The Murrieta City Council is not called to order. Madam City Clerk, would you please call roll?
Councilmember DeForest. Councilmember Stone.
Here.
Councilmember Holliday.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle.
Here.
Mayor Warren.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all members are present with the exception of Councilmember Stone. My apologies, DeForest.
Thank you. No problem. Madam City Clerk, would you please go over the closed session agenda and if there are any public comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Seeing no public comments, City Council will conduct a closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4 because the city is considering whether to initiate litigation in one case. This council will also meet in closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8 to enable the City Council to consider negotiations and give direction to its negotiators regarding that certain real property at the intersection of Kalmia Street and Jefferson Avenue, APN numbers 906-080-041, 906-080-042, and 906-080-033 with both communities and Fidelis Advisors. City's real property negotiator, city manager, assistant city manager, development services director, economic development director, city attorney will seek direction from this council regarding the price and terms for this property. That concludes.
Thank you very much. With that, we're going to go into recess, into closed session, and we'll reconvene at 6 p.m. for our regular meeting. I'm going to now call the October 21st regular meeting of the Murrieta City Council to order. Madam City Attorney, would you please report out closed session?
Yes, Mayor. The City Council met in closed session on 2 items. The first was to consider whether to initiate litigation in one case pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.9D4. The council was updated, no reportable action. The second item was to confer with real property negotiations. This was pursuant to Government Code Section 54956.8. The council was updated and provided direction to staff, no reportable action. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Madam City Clerk, would you please call roll?
Councilmember DeForest. Councilmember Stone.
Here.
Councilmember Holliday.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle.
Here.
Mayor Warren.
Here.
Let the record reflect that all members are present with the exception of Councilmember DeForest with an excused absence.
Thank you very much. At this time, I would ask you to each rise. We're going to have the Pledge of Allegiance led by one of our scouts. And then after that, please remain standing for our invocation led by Murrieta Police Department Chaplain Monte Jones.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Come closer. My heart is one.
Ice cream.
Ready? Gracious God, we come before you with hearts full of gratitude for this city and the people who call it home. We ask for your guidance, wisdom, and strength for our mayor, our city council members, and all who protect and serve our community. Grant them wisdom and discernment to make decisions that are just, compassionate, and rooted in the best interests of all. May your spirit of unity and understanding fill this room. Help us to listen to one another with open hearts and discerning minds, that together we may work for the common good and the flourishing of every person in our city. Amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay. Well, we were going to do a presentation for the retirement of Corporal Matt Mazingo, but we're going to have to postpone that for a future meeting. So now I'm going to ask if there's any changes to the agenda, and if not, may I have a motion and a second? I have a motion by Councilmember Stone and a second by Councilmember Holliday. Please vote.
Motion carries unanimously, 4-0.
Thank you. We're going to move on to our city manager's administrative update. City Manager Clifton.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As a reminder, October is both Breast Cancer Awareness Month, but also Domestic Violence Awareness Month. And in recognition and support of that, City Hall will be lit up in purple for the second half of this month. So you'll see the lights outside. Also a reminder that early voting is now underway. Vote by mail ballots have been sent out, and they can be dropped off at City Hall, the Murrieta Public Library, Fire Station 4, which is out of Baxter near the interstate. And Fire Station 4 will also serve as an 11-day vote center starting October 25th. For questions about registration or voting locations, please contact City Clerk Chris McDonald at cityclerk@murrietaca.gov or give us a call here at City Hall. We have a few presentations this evening for basic reports. First, we're going to have Christina Davies, our Public Information Officer, give us some community updates. She will be followed by the Murrieta Police Department that's going to talk to us about the e-bike social media campaign. And then lastly, the Murrieta Police Department and U.S. Postal Service are going to talk about some of the issues we've had and efforts to curb broken mailboxes.
Good evening. So as usual, I'm going to talk about what is going on in Murrieta. We have a few events coming up. So for the rest of October, we have Dark in the Park. That's happening this Friday. It's also a trunk or treat event with our police department. And so that is from 5:30 to 8. But also at this event, as a reminder, we are in a little competition with the city of Temecula. So we will have our a big competition, as the mayor said. So we will have Milvet boxes at the event, so you can drop off donations. Again, these the items that we are requesting will go into care packages and they'll be sent to our troops overseas. And the information for what we're looking for is on our website. You can go to murrietaca.gov. And then if you're looking for more information on Milvet, you can go to milvet.org/Murrieta. We have a Veterans Day parade that's coming up Tuesday, November 11th, starting at 10 o'clock. Also, we will have Milvet boxes at the parade again to collect items. And then Santa Stops will be happening in December, still looking for volunteers. You can go to murrietasantastops.org. And then we will temporarily be closing our library the first week of November. We are going through an expansion for our children's library. And so they're going to be closing it just for a few days while they move around some shelving to prepare for construction. As always, we say stay connected. So you can visit murrietaca.gov/connect. Thank you.
Welcome.
Thank you. All right. Well, good evening, Mayor, members of the City Council, and City staff. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. It's always a privilege to share updates from the Murrieta Police Department and to discuss the growing e-bike issues we're encountering with the community, as well as the proactive steps that we're taking to address them. To introduce myself, my name is Kurt Stickelman. I'm a traffic investigator too at the Murrieta Police Department. I've been in law enforcement for 24 years. 18 of those years have been on a motorcycle, and 20 of those years have been with the city of Murrieta. I'd allow to my partner to introduce himself.
Thank you. My name is Jared Matthews. I'm a traffic investigator too as well here at the city of Murrieta. I've got almost 14 years of law enforcement experience, with the last 8 of those years being here in the Traffic Bureau in the city of Murrieta.
So the objective of this presentation is to inform you about the issues that have evolved regarding e-bikes and what we're doing to address the issues and answer any questions you may have.
So here at the police department, we've received numerous calls for service reference these types of vehicles, including obstructing traffic, riding on the wrong side of the road, not wearing helmets, tandem riding, and up to include traffic collisions.
Some of the common vehicle code violations that we're encountering are wrong way riders, riders that are in the street, riding without a helmet, and reckless driving. And the reckless driving includes the wheelies. I'm sure you've all seen that, playing chicken with vehicles and obstructing and impeding traffic.
Our Murrieta Municipal Code it mirrors that of the vehicle code. We have the applicability of traffic laws when it comes to riding these types of vehicles here within our city. For example, we have just a couple examples. Kids under 18, they have to wear a helmet. You want them to ride upon the roadway in the same direction as traffic on the right-hand side of the road. And I think it's important to note that these types of vehicles, they can ride on the sidewalk unless it's prohibited by signs.
So Vehicle Code 312.5 is what defines an electric bicycle. And they define it as a bicycle with operable pedals and an electric motor not to exceed 750 watts of power. And they're defined in 3 classes, 1, 2, and 3. These are the street legal e-bikes that you're going to see out there. Some of these images here are the common e-bikes that are street legal.
I'd like to focus or bring your attention to Vehicle Code Section 400, which defines a motorcycle. A motorcycle is a motor vehicle having a seat or saddle for the rider and designed to travel on not more than 3 wheels. We want to not confuse this with the definition of a motor-driven cycle, which is found in Section 405 of the Vehicle Code, or a motorized bicycle or moped, which is defined in Section 406 of the Vehicle Code. This is an example of a couple of motorcycles. On the left, we have a street legal motorcycle. It's got the appropriate lights, mirrors, equipment that would make it street legal. In the middle, we have a motorcycle commonly known as a dirt bike. And on the right, we're another vehicle that we see a lot of gaining popularity. Also a motorcycle. The middle one's going to be like a gas-powered dirt bike, and the one on the right is going to be an electric-powered dirt bike. The one in the middle and the one on the right are not street legal. They're designed for off-road use only, not on the streets or sidewalk here within our city. So our education strategies in regards to getting this information out to the public, we're using our social media team. Since January 2023, we've posted approximately 30 social media posts to include information regarding the safe operation and what's legal, not legal in regards to these types of vehicles. We've conducted e-bike safety presentations at our local schools, and we've done direct traffic enforcement where we provide warnings to the violators that we contact here within the city.
So along with the education strategies, we're also implementing enforcement strategies. And this includes citations for vehicle code violations that we're seeing, targeted enforcement, e-bike operations, grant-funded e-bike safety ops. The win-win for that is that these are, the best part of these operations is that they are completely funded by the Office of Traffic Safety and require no use of city funds. Then we do extra patrols in the areas where the violations are known to occur, and those are some of the areas are like the Ralph Shopping Center off of Washington, the Cal Oaks Sports Park, and the In-N-Out Hamburger Shopping Center as well.
The results from our efforts would include this information being pushed out to over 42,000 social media followers that we have. And we've conducted numerous e-bike operations. On July 9th, that resulted in 21 traffic stops, 12 citations, and 5 e-motorcycles were impounded. On August 19th, we had 17 traffic stops with 7 cites issued and 2 e-motorcycles impounded. And on October 1st, we had 32 traffic stops with 14 cites issued. Now, during these e-bike operations, majority of the time we are contacting juveniles. We're educating them, reference the violations that are occurring, and we are also contacting parents to educate them on the violations that are occurring as well. So we're kind of trying to kill those 2 birds with 1 stone.
So the continued results with the Office of Traffic Safety Grant funded e-bike operations from October of 2024 until September of 2025, we've completed 9 bicycle enforcement education operations, which resulted in 55 citations. And then the extra patrol at the hotspots, these results update on a continuous basis with increased visibility and compliance.
I just want you to know that here in the Traffic Bureau, we do hear the concerns of the citizens, and we really strive to create a safe environment for everyone that's out on the roadway, and we will continue to do that. At this time, I would turn the time back over to the council for any questions or comments.
We have a few questions. So we'll start with Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle.
Thank you, Mayor. One of my favorite topics. As you guys are both probably aware, this area is notorious for motorcycle industry, whether it be dirt bikes or street bikes, but it's kind of like a mecca, right? The parents that are buying the Talarias, the Surons, the now Stark Vargs, they know, in my opinion, they know what they're buying. And so the second that bike comes out of the garage onto the road, that's immediately a citation or illegal or whatever the phrase may be. When does the accountability fall back to the parents ever? Like we give kids warnings, citations, we impound the bikes. I guess the monetary fine or the problem of impounding affects the parents, but Do you have examples of when the parents actually have to be accountable to these?
You want to handle that?
Yeah, so the parents actually can be held accountable. I don't recall the specific vehicle code off the top of my head, but anybody that willingly allows somebody without a driver's license to operate a vehicle can be held liable if something were to happen in an event, in that type of event. So because those types of vehicles are considered motorcycles, you would need a driver's license to ride to drive one of those, to ride one of those. Those aren't street legal. So in the event where we would continually have issues with somebody where, citations are issued, however the children or the kids, whoever it may be, continues to ride those types of vehicles, then we would address it with the parents, and the parents could potentially ultimately be issued a citation for allowing that to happen.
Thank you. And just one follow-up. Have we started using drones yet for implementation of some of these policing activities?
Yes, we have. We have several investigative tools that help us to track down the violators, and drones is one of them.
Awesome. I'd like to hear that. Thank you very much.
Councilmember Holliday, question, comment, discussion?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Question. On the legal e-bikes that you said they were allowed to ride them on the sidewalk, what's their top speed?
So a Class 1 or a Class 2 e-bike, top speed is going to be 20 miles an hour, and a Class 3 e-bike is going to be 28 miles an hour.
So you could have a vehicle traveling at 28 miles an hour down your sidewalk of your neighborhood?
Yes.
That doesn't sound safe.
It could potentially not be safe.
Yeah.
I agree.
But that's state vehicle code.
That is a vehicle code currently at the time. I do believe that the state has allowed cities to adopt
stricter.
Yes, municipal codes to limit the use of those types of vehicles within the city, and I believe we have adopted some of those. One of those municipal codes.
Yeah, you had it on your slide, but it still said it was allowed to be ridden on a sidewalk.
Yes, but there isn't one currently that we have addressed specifically for the sidewalk. It's only if it's not posted. Or
There has to be posting for us to be able to enforce that.
You have to post it throughout the entire city? Every street?
No, as it stands right now. So currently, you are able to ride those types of vehicles on the sidewalk unless it's posted. So an example would be like a city event or city parks. I understand that we're in the works of getting signage put up to limit those types of vehicles from riding in those areas.
In the parks.
And I believe we just don't have anything on the books as of yet for riding those types of vehicles on the sidewalk. I believe we do have the ability to create those municipal codes, but it just hasn't, that one specific has not been done yet.
But if we have to post every street in the city, that's quite a cost.
I understand what you're saying. I guess what I'm saying is if we enacted a municipal code that just said, hey, these types of vehicles are not permitted to be ridden on the sidewalk, that's different than what we have right now in a municipal code, because as it reads right now, it says they are allowed on the sidewalks unless it's posted.
And do you have any record of any types of accidents with pedestrians and those bikes on the sidewalks?
So we do, that information is tracked through SWITers.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have that information with me right now, but I do know that information is tracked.
If you could forward that to me when you have it, I'd appreciate it.
No problem.
Thank you.
Councilmember Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. This is to our city manager, Mr. Clifton. I live off of Whitewood in Los Alamos. I'm behind the In-N-Out Burger Shopping Center, so I know what goes on over there. I actually witnessed a bike not paying attention and got hit in that shopping center. I've also witnessed wheelie driving down Los Alamos as well. I've also witnessed tandem, three youths on an e-bike, even without helmets. I want to commend our police department for the education that you are doing within our unified school district, and even at the colony, our chief had talked about the e-bikes at the State of the City, because that was the number one request was about the sidewalks. I would like to propose not every single street in Murrieta, but at least one signage in each district that talks about some of the laws, that they have to wear a helmet, that there's no tandem driving on e-bikes, as an additional layer of communication to our residents, and why these youth are driving. They're going to be able to see that. So is that possible that we could at least get one in each district that addresses our municipal code in a dumb it down version for our youth to understand that they have to, sorry everybody, this is an inside joke, by the way, I'm sure you're aware of it. But again, it's really important that we have several layers of communication that's visible, that our residents see that we're taking this seriously, and our youth as well.
Yep, thank you for the question. We can certainly look to improve our communication on this issue with some additional signage. And then at some point, after seeing the effectiveness of the social media campaign, the enforcement efforts, we could also bring back some policy considerations if it were to take more resources to, take additional action, including possible addition of certain other no sidewalk rules where we might have some targeted prohibition of that kind of activity.
I have to tell you, I'm a little concerned. I understand where Councilmember Holliday is suggesting about the sidewalks, but I have to tell you what does concern me is our drivers are distracted. Our drivers are still on their cell phone. They're eating, and it would be so horrific if a youth was hit and killed, and one was in Huntington Beach recently. So that does concern me, and I think that I like to see a workshop in the future to discuss the public safety aspect of what we should facilitate here in Murrieta.
Okay. You're not answering that? You're good.
Yeah, at any time, if you'd like to propose a workshop on that item, we can certainly do that. We'll have a place later on tonight's agenda if you want to bring that up.
I know that you are under a lot of restraints when it comes to this. I know that the kids are disrespectful to you. I know that they use inappropriate finger languages. They try to run over people in the street. They are not respectful at all. And your restraint is amazing. Your professionalism is off the charts. And how many times do you warn them before you cite them?
For me, personally, it's a lot of it's driven by the attitude of the child.
So they get cited right away, huh?
Yeah, they can. If it warrants the citation, they're going to get the citation. If you have a good kid that's violating the law but respectful, we'll always contact parents. Okay. And because we want to win the public. And every time that I can show some kind of leniency where I feel it's effective, then that kid's going to tell another kid, and I feel like that's a win.
And that is great policing. That is fabulous. I know that it is unsafe to chase these youths on these bikes, and that's why you don't, because we don't know if they're distracting a motorist, and we don't know if a motorist sees an e-bike coming down, do I go this way, do I go that way, and they end up on a sidewalk with their car, and then they hurt somebody else walking on a sidewalk. So you're in a very difficult situation. What you are doing with the tools that you have are amazing, and I want to say thank you. I do appreciate it very, very much.
I appreciate that.
Thank you.
No, you had your turn.
One more quick comment, sorry.
You had your turn.
The city to our south, one of the council members that owns the barber shops, said that he pointed out that their PD, their controlled PD presence there, is impounding every Sur-Ron type bike without question. And I think that's to the sentiment of kind of what Councilwoman Stone had said. You don't want that death event to happen here, and if it's going to happen, I believe it's going to be on one of those types of motorcycles. because I think they're trying to set precedent for the education, because this is a rolling wave of a problem. So just throwing that out there, that they're already kind of posturing that.
Thank you so much. No more? You can leave. You're good.
Thank you.
I just
presentation,
have
thank you.
one last comment, if
Sure.
I might, for Councilwoman Stone's concern regarding the distracted drivers. Part of the OTS grant funded enforcement operations include looking for distracted drivers as well, surrounding e-bikes. So I just wanted you to know that that's part of a concern of ours that we're addressing.
Thank you. Hey, great job, guys. We really appreciate all you're doing. Thank you. Stay safe out there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And then one more, Madam
Yes.
Mayor, we're going to have members of our police department and the U.S. Postal Service to talk to us a little bit about the issues we've seen around broken into mailboxes.
It is certainly nice to see you again. Please come on. You can sit at the council over down there if you want to. That way everybody can have a microphone. Anytime you're ready.
First of all, thank you. I'd take a second to introduce myself. My name is Derek Baker. I'm a supervisor with the Postal Inspection Service. And then to my right is Dan Passian. He is a postmaster for the Murrieta Post Office that's located here in your city off Los Alamos. I think you may or may not be familiar with Sergeant Creed at your own police department. And then to my left and behind me are postal inspectors that work on my group. This is Lauren Ireland and Paul Miro. Some of us also do still live in the city of Murrieta. Some of us are on the outskirts, which you might want to annex a little bit further, but that's a whole nother council meeting. Right. So I'll just kind of blow through a little bit of this presentation. If I gloss over something, please feel free, to interrupt me or whatever the decorum would allow. And then any questions that you may have, I'll take them from the kind of the federal law enforcement side, and then afterwards Dan will be here to kind of field any other questions that maybe I can't fill in the gaps for. So thank you. So to start off, this is a collaborative effort just to kind of define and give an overarching theme for everything. The Murrieta Police Department's not just here because you guys requested it. They're here because we work very closely with them and we have a great relationship with them, and we value that relationship with the police department and with the city as a whole. So I just want to make that very abundantly clear to start off. Just a little bit of background. I don't want to bore everyone with a history lesson, but the inspection service is, we kind of like to tell ourselves we're the oldest law enforcement agency out there. Benjamin Franklin founded us. We like to tout that. There's kind of this ongoing theme with federal agencies. Everyone likes to say they're the oldest. We're actually the oldest. We'll just say that. But our primary mission is not just to protect the customers, the mail, but to protect our employees, the facilities, and everything like that. We're the largest employer in the federal government for personnel. There's a lot of facilities and infrastructure that goes along with that. Outside of the inspection service, just what we're supposed to protect, we investigate all varieties of crime. There's over 200 federal statutes that collectively govern what our programmatic areas are, and that can be anything from mail theft, identity theft, bank and wire fraud, child exploitation, et cetera, et cetera. I'm not going to bore you with all of those things. But not only do we have domestic offices, we have international offices, and that's how we're effective with a lot of the things that we do, not just here in the United States, but outside as well. Mail theft is probably one of the hottest topics, and we'll address why here later, but mail theft is what we generally refer to as mail being stolen, and that can be stolen from when it's dropped off into the mail stream, as we refer to it, or when it's taken out of the mail stream at its final delivery destination, or kind of anywhere in between. So these I'll say criminals, for lack of a better way to say it, they're drawn to these mailboxes because they're easily accessible, they're open, private mailboxes are open, there's generally no locks on private mailboxes, and even the locks for what's called a collection box. Internally, those locks can be defeated. The Postal Service has gone through several iterations of trying to make these things a little bit harder to defeat. But it's kind of like having an alarm on your house. If somebody wants to break into your house, they're probably going to break into your house. Generally, what what the bad guys and girls are looking for are all of these things here, right? Credit cards, checks, driver's licenses, IDs. They're looking for when you get your renewed driver's license, when you get those new tags for that car that you just bought. They're looking for all those things in one way, shape, or form in order to either assume your identity or at least assume some information about you so that they can perpetuate whatever criminal activity that it is that they want to do. Those can take the forms of, believe it or not, buying cars, opening cell phones, renting apartments, manufacturing driver's licenses with all of your information on it, but my beautiful face on there. So it can take any scheme you can think of, we've seen it, and that's where kind of our expertise lies. Sorry, I really prided myself on the transitions on the slideshow. They get more creative as the presentation goes on, so just look out for them, just to bring your eye to that. Identity theft, this is generally the definition of what we consider identity theft. And so it's the fraudulent acquisition and the use of a person's personal identification, financial information, and there's usually some sort of financial gain, whether that's short-sighted, like I just need something to go and you know, buy something at the vape store or the liquor store, or I got to buy an auto part, or these longer-term criminal enterprises that are more organized, gang-related, et cetera, et cetera. These are a lot of the similar things for what I had said earlier about how they will actually assume your identity. Believe it or not, filing false tax returns can occur. And they'll assume your identity to perpetuate any number of these criminal enterprises like I talked about. That's a good one too, right there. These are some of the important things that we like to bring to everyone's attention as we either give presentations, speak at meetings, or et cetera, et cetera. But there's a lot of important things that people should look out for and be conscientious of. One of these things to identify if you are a victim is by receiving bank statements, credit cards, failed applications, and you're going through your junk mail. I hate to use that term, but you're going through your junk mail going, well, I didn't apply for that. Oh, maybe they just, you know, had the wrong information. These things are actually like very indicative of some sort of, you know, basically fraudulent scheme that usually involves your identity. Credits denied, you're receiving past due or collection notices, and it's just a little fun fact that's kind of floats around, but they say 88% of credit card fraud is actually unreported. So a lot of times you may not even know. It happened to my wife the other day. Somebody ordered $900 in Costco stuff to be shipped to Massachusetts. I don't even like Massachusetts, you know, so it happens all the time. One of the important things to realize is that fraud in general, not just credit card, check fraud, is more likely to affect just people in general than some of the other more readily identifiable or violent crimes. And what I mean by that is, on the previous slide, stolen cars. We talk about stolen cars, for instance, right? You are several hundred times more likely to be a victim of a fraud, whatever fraud that may be, than to have your car stolen. Right? And so you think about the implications of that. You know, you go outside and your car's going to be there, parked in the garage, in your driveway, whatever it is. You would know if it's gone, right? You walk outside, you know if your car's gone. A lot of times you will never know if your identity has been stolen one way, shape, or form. And if you do find out, I say if you do find out, you may not find out till weeks, months, years later. And that's really where the impact is identifying these things ahead of time, right? So how do we as a society, as citizens, as everyone, how do we take some proactive efforts to kind of protect your mail, protect your identity, all of these things, right? So number one, we try to tell everyone is please do not leave your mail in your mailbox overnight. I will tell you, this is the pot calling the kettle black. I leave my mail in my mailbox all the time overnight. I'm probably the worst offender at it, but please do not do it, right? It's a vulnerable point. All of your stuff is sitting in one place for several days at a time, right? It's one single, easy, very proactive effort you can take to make it just a little bit more difficult, right? Please keep track of checks, credit cards, credit card statements, things that you're supposed to be expecting, right? Driver's license renewals, et cetera, et cetera. Everyone knows that you can go through the post office to change your address, right? That's very easy to do. Please do that as soon as you can. When you know your address, you're moving, your lease is up, whatever it is, we highly recommend you do that as quick as you can, right? And that's verified internally with the Postal Service. That's a whole nother process. Checking your credit and credit report reports, reporting lost or stolen cards. Even if you just lost it, you don't think it's stolen, please report those to the credit card issuers. And then be on the lookout for, any of these credit applications that are coming in or things that, you just don't want anymore. Try not to just throw it in the trash, right? Rip it up, do something proactive to it, right? That's a really good one. See? I'm getting oohs and ahs now. This is the liveliness I was looking for, right? So actions and stuff for people who now we know you're a victim, right? These are some of the things that we really encourage you to do, right? The Postal Inspection Service has our own website like everyone else, right? You can go to that website. You can actually call this number, the 877 number that's displayed there. There are people that sit there 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's a national law enforcement communications center. Police departments will call this number if they need help with something and they don't know their local postal inspector. So this number is kind of a catch-all for anyone who wants to report anything, whether you're a victim or not. We highly encourage filing reports with the Murrieta Police Department because we try to have that open relationship with them. We generally lean on them if we need to identify something that's pretty quick, or we know maybe it is identified in a different way as a vandalism as opposed to a mail theft. So those are some of the things that we try to look out for when we're proactively identifying some of these trends. We talked about the credit cards, and then we talked about keeping a copy of your mail, statements, documents, right? If you believe you're a victim, keep those copies. It's not that we as law enforcement can't get those copies from the bank or the cell phone company or things like that, but it's usually a lot faster if the victim says, hey, by the way, this is all the fraudulent stuff that they sent me, right? It makes it faster, a little bit more responsive. So all of this matters. Hopefully this is kind of what we're building up to. All of this matters to the city of Murrieta. And it matters for several reasons. One of the reasons is I just take a second to kind of talk about some of these numbers that are on the screen, and I don't want to bore you with statistics, but in 2024, there were a little more than 150 reports of some sort of fraud, theft, et cetera, et cetera. Now, mind you, these numbers are not what was reported to the Murrieta Police Department. This is just us as a federal agency, and I want to emphasize that, right? However, in the calendar year of 2025, and we're not done, you've seen at least a 97% increase in what's been reported to us, right? Just us, not your police department. And I say that because I want to emphasize two things. One, I already did. It's not what's being reported to them, but this is not solely indicative of what's happening only in Murrieta, right? This is a regional issue. It's affecting cities and jurisdictions that are not located just in Murrieta, but are co-located in the same area. So Temecula and Wildomar and French Valley and Hemet, Paris, and et cetera, et cetera. This is a very sharp increase from what's happened over years past. And I just wanted to bring that up to your attention, right? These complaints that are received are going to obviously the Murrieta Police Department. They're coming to us, and what we're trying to do is pair up. We're trying to identify these trends faster. We're trying to take some proactive steps, and I can talk about some of those proactive steps later. But we're really trying to get on top of what's occurring here in Murrieta. So the difference between reporting it to the inspection service and reporting it to the police department is there's a reason the city of Murrieta prides itself in its police department, and it's because when you guys pick up the phone and you want to call someone, they're going to be there just like that, right? And so we highly recommend that you take advantage of the good policing that's going on as described by the mayor earlier, and use them. That's what they're there for. So when you suspect you're a victim of one of these crimes that we've talked about or something related or any crime, call them, report it to them so we can at least get something that's on record and identify as much as we can as fast as we can, right? I mentioned our partnership with the Murrieta Police Department extends maybe a little bit more than most other police departments in the sense that we've prided ourselves in having what's known as a task force officer. So this is a state and local sworn police officer with your police department who has been able to dedicate some of her time as a federal law enforcement officer. We've given her a background clearance and access to all of the things that we have, and we've given her, this has kind of been maybe like the version 1, and we've tried to see how it's been working, and it's been working great, but it's been on a part-time status, and we love having that relationship and having those partnerships. That pilot program, this is for another day, but we always anticipate having as many task force officers as we can, and we've been expanding that program outward from Murrieta, and we, eventually would like to bring that to fruition as a full-time situation down the road. All of that being said, having those partnerships, whether there's a task force officer or not, makes it very integral to not just identifying the trends, but making forward momentum and prosecuting these people who are affecting all of the people in this city. Is that good one too? I know. These are all free in PowerPoint, by the way, I'd just like to say. So this is when these calls for service come out, the investigation begins, and then the decision is essentially made. How can we get the biggest bang for our buck? Is that going to be a federal prosecution? Are there federal search warrants? Is this a case that's a one and done, and we identified one person who has a drug addiction and they broke into one mailbox, and that's better suited for the state prosecution level? Each one of those are done on a case-by-case basis because we have to figure out if there's a larger trend. If one of these one and dones isn't a one and done, is it indicative of a larger organized crime network? And if so, that's really where that federal partnership comes into play. I will tell you, out of the last several years investigating cases in and around Murrieta, I'm not sure what it is about Murrieta, but everybody likes to come through or swing by at some point in time, even if it's on the freeway. And so because you guys' police department is like so effective, I can pretty much look at all these reports and find someone who's been stopped in Murrieta for something they shouldn't have done. And it's great. It's great to have all of that. When those things happen, we collect that evidence. We look and analyze that evidence, whether that's digital evidence, laptops, cell phones, et cetera, and we try to pair all of that up and figure out where the best bang for our buck is. And then that results in that prosecution that we talked about. We talked about some of the benefits of this already. The broader jurisdiction, that local detective is off executing search warrants in Burbank, and not because they want to go to Burbank, but because the people that are affecting your city and your citizens are located elsewhere. They're not located in Murrieta. They're out there, and we want to go get them and stop them from doing that. There's a lot of shared opportunities for training that we try to put a lot of not just our TFOs through, but our detectives who have been overly helpful with things. And then that results in a larger deterrence and effect on all of these criminals who are targeting all of your citizens in their neighborhoods. That one's called origami, by the way. And so what we're aiming to really accomplish long-term is a reduction in these incidents, especially the sharp increase that's occurred over the past year. We're actually looking for increased restitution, recovery for these victims, a little bit more, improvement on the public trust and responsiveness. And this is really the message that we're trying to put out, is that the Murrieta Police Department is collaborating with the Postal Inspection Service in protecting your identity and your finances. This is just good. It's exciting. And these are kind of the next steps. So I talked about some of these proactive things that we're doing. We have several joint operations, law enforcement operations that we conduct with the Murrieta Police Department and our other task force officers. And those are aimed at both intel gathering and enforcement. And then to accomplish some of those proactive operations, we use all of the cool federal toys that are at our disposal that I won't go into and divulge, but we like to do a lot of cool things and be creative with how we approach our problems. We also like to do a lot of public education campaigns. I believe a couple of our inspectors were out at the National Night Out to try to build some public awareness, and we really like to dedicate certain resources to sustaining some of these programs. This is something we like to pass out as well. This is a QR code that you can feel free to take from the PowerPoint, pass it along through social media, whatever it is. But if there's a report, you've been a victim of one of these crimes, scan it, takes it right to you on your phone. You can enter your information, and then we have that information. We can reach out to you to get some further details if we need to, and go from there. That will pretty much conclude. That's our address, that's our phone number, and if there's any questions, I'd love to have them.
Thank you so very much. I know that we met through Zoom. I asked for a meeting with all of us quite some time ago, and I want to thank you for being receptive to meeting and diving in on this subject and trying to find a way to help our residents, because it is frustrating for everybody.
Yes, ma'am.
So I want to thank you and your team and our police department, because being proactive is way better than being reactive.
Agreed.
Across the board. I think we have one question or a comment from Councilmember Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Ironically, I just received an email from a constituent. I'd like to read you the email, if I may.
Please.
It says, below is my email exchange with Post Office Supervisor Joseph Onikal. Did I say that correctly? Of the Los Alamos branch regarding the return of our outgoing mailbox, which was removed for repairs in February of 2025 and has not yet been returned. The mailbox has been located in our clubhouse parking lot for more than 30 years and is valued by both residents and staff. I'm encouraging you, Councilmember Stone, for its replacement. So I represent District 4, and I represent the colony that has the largest vulnerable elderly population. And so what I'd like to do is connect you with Jim Morgan, who is the executive director of the colony, and see if we can get that mailbox unit replaced at the colony.
Absolutely.
In addition, I would love to partner with you and do a presentation at the colony for all the residents. So maybe you and I can hook up and do an outreach to their executive director, Jim Morgan, on a date that would be acceptable to the residents.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you partnered with our Congressman Darrell Issa?
So partner is generally, that kind of comes at a one-way street. We receive congressional inquiries directly from different members of Congress. And when those inquiries come down, it's usually a specific matter that's brought to their attention. I don't mean like a mailbox is missing. I mean there's generally some sort of like specific allegation or insinuation of something that's occurring specifically. So we do get those congressional inquiries that we are mandated to respond to in a specific time. We haven't received any, to my knowledge, I think it's been about a year or so since we've received any specifically that were related not to this area.
I think it's really important that you communicate with one of his legislative assistants, and I can also connect the two of you. I think an ongoing collaboration of having Congressman Darrell Issa be part of this discussion and what is happening. I'm sure you hear from everybody, but having that connection at the local level and having their input of solutions based on what is happening in Washington, D.C. I think it's really important that you have that relationship with our local Congress office.
Yes, ma'am.
In addition, is this a true statement that mail theft has been reduced from a felony to a misdemeanor?
Well, I'd like to address that partially. Federally, it is a felony. However, in the state of California, and I'll probably have to give it over to Sergeant Creed, to my knowledge, I believe there are parts of mail theft that are a misdemeanor, but I'll let Sergeant Creed address that answer specifically.
Yeah, as I'm sure the members of the council are aware, there are a lot of laws that were previously felonies that have been dropped to misdemeanors. It's not something that I particularly agree with, but as far as the actual theft of the mail, it depends on a value. There's a barrier, a threshold for felonious theft, and if it's under that, then it's considered a misdemeanor. And then as far as like the term burglary, when you're breaking into like a residence or a commercial property, a mailbox isn't viewed that way. It's not actually a burglary of the mailbox on a felony level, so it is correct.
So basically, just like the laws that allow the people that want to steal from Home Depot walk in and they walk out with a certain amount of merchandise, So it falls under that same law, correct?
Correct. Anytime a person is taking property, depriving property from another person, which taking of mail would be depriving that person of their property, the value of that property is considered in whether it's felonious or a misdemeanor.
Right. So basically, the criminal can go from one mailbox to the next, to the next, to the next. Every single day, they can, still up to $950 worth of gift cards or checks and so on and so forth.
There are subdivisions of the penal code that can connect crimes for evaluation and turn them into a felony crime, so we don't just, and I think it's probably pretty obvious to even the average person that doesn't deal with law enforcement or enforcing the law. It can be hard to connect things. So if you're able to, then there are subdivisions of the penal code that allow for the connection of continued thefts. Some people call them sprees.
Yeah.
But if you don't connect the theft in District 4 to District 1, then the investigation won't lead to that felonious level.
Right. And to your knowledge, have we caught and prosecuted anyone here in Murrieta?
Yes, and so similar to my partner, I won't get into the specific investigative techniques that are used, but there are ways to tell that the same individual or the group working in concert are committing those crimes, and we have had investigations that have been fruitful in that, right? But it would be, it's pretty much conjecture for me to say that a number, because you never know what you don't know, but for everyone we catch, my assumption is it's a much greater number of those that we haven't connected, and that's why the task force and the partnership with the Postal Service is so important, because not to sound like I'm being, to bring levity to what I'm saying, if you're in a school fight on the schoolyard and your big brother is behind your back, it's a little better when you walk up to the bully. And with these criminal entities, it's always nice to have the federal government with you. So when we're dealing with those types of issues, they have the expertise to actually see that investigation through and connect some of the dots that maybe as a municipal police officer you wouldn't be able to connect just because of their expertise in the subject matter. The term jack of all trades, law enforcement is jack of all trades. That means we're good at what we do, but the colloquialism is master of none, right? And they are the masters and experts of this mail theft. So the partnership has allowed us, and I've seen it specifically because in my role, I work directly with the task force officer. I supervise the task force officer. So I see how much it goes from that line level, maybe traffic stop with some mail, and then you're ending up at a honey hole of other fraudulent activity and criminal activity, guns, drugs. So there's a huge value in the partnership, but it's about connecting those dots.
Yeah. Thank you for your service to our community. It's really appreciated. Thank you for answering all my questions. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. We want to thank you for coming out tonight. I know this is a really big problem. It's a pain for everybody. Please, people, get your mail. And if you do have a theft, report it. They need you to report it. That's how they can track it. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you, ma'am.
Madam Mayor, that concludes my announcements.
Thank you very much. They were great announcements tonight. I got to say, we did a good job. We're going to move on to our governing body reports. It's an opportunity for council to provide a brief summary of conferences, seminars, and commissions, and committee meetings and board meetings. Governing body announcements is an opportunity for city council to provide miscellaneous reports and announcements. Reports will not exceed 5 minutes. City clerk will use a computerized timer. We are going to start with Councilmember Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. As the primary for the California League of Cities, I attended their conference, and I also participated in a podcast that was kind of exciting. I was able to brag about the quality of life here in Murrieta. the fact that we own our police department and our fire department and our senior center and our library. And I talked about the new projects of Murrieta Hot Springs still, and gave the history about Murrieta Hot Springs and the old ways of wellness and the old architecture that they have preserved to the new and latest of wellness that Murrieta Hot Springs is offering. Talked about the Golden Triangle as well, and I know we're all waiting for the Dominigoni family to announce what is happening at the Golden Triangle, and that will happen soon. In addition, Councilmember Holliday and I attended a session on parking structures. And it was actually very, very interesting to understand the development of parking structures. What I loved most was location, 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 by the way, to our staff that's in the audience. And they shared a parking structure, a 4-story parking structure that was only a block and a half from their downtown. And the 2 top floors are not even being used because people don't want to walk a block and a half. So, but it was really, really interesting. It was a great few days, and there was no voting, so I was able to come home early on Friday. In addition, I attended the Holocaust Memorial event at Bailey's. The keynote speaker was amazing, that talked about his family history during the Nazi regime. Very heart-wrenching. In addition, I attended the Nova Music Attack Festival in Israel by Hamas at the gathering here at the flagpole, and that was lovely as well. I attended the Murrieta Rod Run. The weather was beautiful, ran into our public safety, and in addition, I attended the Susan G. Komen Inland Empire More Than a Pink Walk, and you're gonna see Danny, our little mascot, with our mayor and mayor pro tem. It was a very, very successful morning. And it was a beautiful morning, as you can see, because the week before we had a rainstorm. In addition, I facilitated the 5th annual State of the City at the Colony, and I want to give kudos to our staff. They were absolutely amazing, and what I loved more than anything, instead of me introducing them, I had them introduce themselves and talk about why they love their job. And you rose to the occasion. It was very, very heartfelt. So thank you all so much for attending the 5th annual State of the City for the Colony. And then our illustrious mayor actually did the State of the City for the city of Murrieta. It was a beautiful, beautiful presentation. I believe her vision came to fruition perfectly. It was well attended, and the energy was in the room. In addition, I attended the EMWD 75th anniversary celebration, where the city of Murrieta acknowledged them with a little certificate and congratulating all of them for their 75 years of efforts. I also attended Wilson Creek's 25th anniversary celebration, and it was kind of nice. I was here when they had their grand opening 25 years ago, and it's nice to see their success here in our valley. And that concludes my governing body announcements, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councilmember Stone. Councilmember Holliday?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Stone was very busy because I was not. I attended the Cal Cities event for 3 days right after our council meeting on the 7th, from the 8th through the 10th. Found some of the sessions to be informative. And then on the 10th, I left on vacation and returned just this weekend. And so the only thing I have, which is not on my slides, is I did attend the, oh yeah, there's a picture of the Ark that I visited in Kentucky. The thing is huge. I did attend with the mayor the ad hoc committee meeting for the Town Square Amphitheater earlier today, so that didn't make it onto my slide, but we are getting very, very close to bringing that back to council for the full council to look at, hopefully in December. And that's all I've got.
Thank you, Councilmember Holliday. Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle, what you been doing?
Not a lot. Holding dog. I wasn't on vacation. I have no governing body reports. As far as announcements, kind of to overlap with Councilwoman Stone's elaborate descriptions. The state of the city I went to, again, Mayor Warren, great job.
Thank you.
That venue is beautiful. I think it's perfect for the state of the city. The Susan G. Komen Walk, huge event. If you guys have not been to that, try to go next year. I mean, I don't know how many, if we have a number count this year, but it seems like there's 10,000 people there. The Cal was with my colleagues at the Cal Cities event in Long Beach. Always fun to hear what sessions are going on there. And then I'd like to announce for the first time ever, you guys heard someone tie in parking structures in what was deemed really, really interesting. Congratulations, Councilwoman Stone.
I take it that concludes your report?
That's it.
Okay, that's good. We'll move on to mine. I'll go quickly. I too was at the Cal Cities conference. It was their general sessions this time were very, very good. So I really enjoyed those a lot. It's an interesting atmosphere at these events. You learn a lot and you come away with a little bit more than you thought you were going to, hopefully. We did have our town square and amphitheater meeting today, and we are moving mountains, it seems like, and we are getting closer to bringing it back to council. My governing body announcements. I rushed back on Thursday from Cal Cities because I promised I would attend the Temecula Valley Business Expo that was being held at Murrieta Hot Springs Resort, and I was there with the mayor from Temecula, and we held a Meet the Mayor, and it was a lot of fun. I will admit, when I asked for a parking space, I never expected a 6-foot sign with my picture on it. But it was well seen. Everybody got to see where I was parking, so Brendan and I thought that was pretty funny. I was able to pick a beautiful car at the Rod Run, and I picked this 1957 Thunderbird. It is a beauty. And I hear that we might be able to see it in the Veterans Parade, so that might be one of the cars that we will be riding in. Yes, I was at the Pink Walk, more than Pink Walk. That was super fun and super early. What a busy week last week was. I want to thank everybody. The state of the city was absolutely amazing to present, amazing to boast about this city and all the hard work all of you do. Not me, all of you. This city is not run by one person alone. It takes an army, and we have the best army there is. And I want to say thank you to everybody that attended, that supported the efforts, and then everything that went into it, including our wonderful Chamber of Commerce, Mr. Patrick Ellis, with many, many middle names. Thank you so much for you and your staff for everything that you did as well. And the food was great. The atmosphere was very riveting, and I think we got it from start to finish, 45 minutes. That was a good thing. So we're very happy about it. And I want to thank the students for coming out and singing. We had Thompson Middle School Choir came out and sang, and then we had the Junior ROTC Navy detail from Murrieta Mesa. So it was very exciting. I enjoyed every minute of it. Had a meeting with Chuck Washington and his staff the following day. Following day went to another State of the City, and then that morning, the following morning at some 7:30 in the morning was that Student of the Month. Times just, everything's running really into day after day. Excellent students again. Wow, the future is so bright with all these wonderful students that are going to be graduating and going into the workforce or into college. I had the opportunity to be in a documentary filming last Friday for Mayors Matter, and I should know more about it when it'll be out, but probably by the first of the year. And I got to end my week at the Murrieta Valley Military Appreciation Football Game, along with our police department and our fire department, and Chief Malloy was there. And we were able to go out for the coin toss. And what an inspiration to see these young men that are very tall, but everybody's taller than me, to come up to all of us and say thank you. And the respect that they showed, I was so impressed, and I was so honored to be a part of that. And Chief Malloy, you stood above most. You were great that night, so thank you so very much. And that concludes my report. Now we're going to move on to see, page 3 of my thing. Public comments. Any person may address the governing bodies on any subject pertaining to city business. Normally, no action may be considered or taken by the governing bodies on any matters not listed on the agenda. Each speaker will be limited to 3 minutes. This is public comments for non-agendized items. Madam City Clerk, do we have any public comments?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Julie Polly.
Welcome.
See it?
I don't know.
Julie Polly, and I'm actually wearing 2 hats tonight. So I'll start with the first is business. I'm here as the Government Affairs Director for SRCAR, your local Realtor Association. And I'm here to share, if you've eaten all your candy from the trunk or treat on the 24th with the city, you can come to our trunk or treat on October 29th at our offices from 4:30 to 6:30. So come on by. Now I will have a much more important hat to wear, which is as you know, I'm an Eagle Scout mom of 2, along with Jeff Hitch. We have a lot of, we've served in the same troop together for a long time. And so I'm going to have the Scouts come up. I am a merit badge counselor for the Citizenship and the Community Merit Badge, which is an Eagle required merit badge. And so these are all, come on up, guys. We'll introduce ourselves. We'll get it within the 3 minutes. So this is, they're all working on an Eagle required merit badge, Citizenship and the Community, which is basically your local government. It's a long day for them to have to be in school and then a city council meeting.
Sorry, guys.
So these are all Scouts that wish to be Eagle and working on their Eagle rank. And I want to thank Councilmember Stone, who spent like a couple hours with them answering their questions about local government, what it was like to be on the city council, what cities do and don't do. So thank you again, Councilmember Stone, for being so generous with your time. So I've just asked them to introduce themselves, their rank, and their troop, and then we'll allow you to finish your meeting.
I'm DJ Chile. I'm life rank, and I'm from Troop 384.
Thank you for doing our Pledge of Allegiance.
You're welcome.
I am Joshua Cladios. I am Tenderfoot rank, and I am from Troop 384.
My name is Bhavesh Grantla, and I'm from Troop 384, and I'm a Tenderfoot.
My name is Honest Garcia, and my rank is Scout, and the troop is 384.
My name is Hunter Wing. I'm 10-4 rank, and my troop is Scout 384.
My name is Alistair Urbanski. I'm Tenderfoot, and I'm in Troop 384.
I'm Satoon Vijay Sundara. I'm Tenderfoot, and I'm in Troop 384.
My name is Jade Garcia. And I'm second class, and I'm 584.
My name is Sierra Jackson. I'm a Tenderfoot, and I'm in Troop 584.
My name is Audrey Anderson. I'm a Tenderfoot, and I'm in Troop 584.
Thank you. I want to thank you all so much for coming out tonight. You keep working on those Eagle Scout badges. My late husband was an Eagle Scout, and it meant a whole lot to him. In fact, I still have his Eagle Scout pin and his sash with all his badges on them. So you guys just keep up the good work, and thank you for being here tonight. We appreciate it. Madam City Clerk?
Madam Mayor, that concludes public comments.
Thank you. We're now going to move on to our discussion item. Discussion regarding the starting time and schedule for city council meetings. Oh, we're not.
Sorry, Madam Mayor.
Oh, I'm sorry. I forgot the consent calendar. I tried to get away with that one, huh? Items, we're going to go to the consent calendar. Thank you for reminding me. Items on the consent calendar are considered routine and may be enacted by one motion and vote. There will be no discussion of these items unless specific items are removed from the consent calendar for separate motions. Are there any requests from City Council to pull any consent calendar items for discussion or recuse from voting? Seeing none. Madam City Clerk, are there any members of the public requesting to speak on a consent item?
Seeing none.
Thank you. May I have a motion and a second? I have a motion for Councilmember Holliday and a second by Mayor Pro Tem Lavelle. Please vote.
Motion carries unanimously 4-0.
Thank you, and again, my apologies for skipping that. Moving on now to the discussion item number 10, regarding the start time and schedule for city council meeting days. Staff is about to join us up here. Hello, welcome. When you're ready, please begin.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. So this item that's being brought forward is based off of our September 16th City Council meeting where you adopted the 2026 City Council meeting calendar. And at that time, it was brought up possibilities of changing times. And so really all I'm doing is bringing that forward. And this will be a discussion and you all can give me some direction. Before we get into it, there's just a little bit of background. This is that what governs the council meetings that are done here in Murrieta. We're a general law city, so the government codes requires that we have at least one meeting a month. And we have a resolution. It's basically your rules of procedure, and that defines the days and times of when you have your council meetings. And the municipal code Title II that also governs this. And that just basically defers to Resolution 19-417. So I wanted to note what we currently do, as we all know. We have regular meetings. They're on the first and third Tuesday, and they are at 6 p.m. You also hold closed sessions before the start of the regular meeting. And then with workshops, you also hold those prior to the regular meeting. Today was a good example of the Hillside. And so I wanted to give you just a little bit of input as to what that looks like in the background on city staff side. And so because we're required to start at 6 p.m. the regular meeting per your rules of procedure, we then have to wait and determine how many closed session items we have based off of the executive team, city attorney, and of course, city manager. And based off of how many, then we determine how much time do you all need, and then from there we kind of count backwards. And I'm actually terrible at math, so usually the city manager has to tell me this is the start time. That's for real. And then also when we have a workshop, we also then have to take in consideration, we ask the staff member in charge, give us an approximation of how much time you need. So as example, for the Hillside, we were told 90 minutes. You did a good job. Thank you for keeping them to that, Mayor. And so we take how much time do you think you need, and then we take how many closed sessions we're required to have for that meeting. We take the time we believe, the approximate time it takes, and then we add that all up and we work backwards. Hence, sometimes you start at 2 o'clock, 2:45, 3:30, 4 o'clock. It depends on the day. But at the end of the day, you start your regular meetings at 6 o'clock per our rules of procedure. So I'm just going to recap. You all were here, so I'm not sure if you really need it, but this is really for members of the public. So what we did was we extracted what was brought up during the September 16th meeting, and also some ideas that were just kind of thrown out there. So this is really just, I'm going to call it like, you know, some loose minutes per se. We just pulled out what you all said. And so what was brought up from the dais was you all wanted us to think about availability of city council members with professional commitments. The coordination with city operations and staff working hours, that's something that I'd like to disclose. I did have conversations with some council members and the city manager after the meeting, so anything in italics is that. So that's one of them that was really discussed offline. Also from the dais, you brought up encouraging community participation and accessibility. That was Councilmember Stone, if I recall correctly. Oh yeah, and I have Kimberly here, everybody. Kimberly Ramirez is assisting me. And then organizational efficiency and consistency across meeting schedules. That's what we heard you all were looking for. And then the ideas that came from the dais were, you know, maybe we hold the workshops on the second and fourth Tuesday instead of the same day as council. So it would be, you know, 1 week city council, the following week workshop, so on and so forth. You also provided times. You guys said somebody threw out 4 o'clock, somebody threw out 5 o'clock, and somebody threw out 6 o'clock. I also had conversations separately, and I was, I think it was with a council member, and it was suggested maybe it gets held the same week as council, but a different day. So the example that was provided to me was if we have council on Tuesday, we hold the workshop the same week on the following Thursday, and we kind of set that schedule. And then what was also provided as ideas was to hold the regular meeting at the same days, but at 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, or 5 o'clock. And then it was suggested that closed sessions get held at the end. So that was just kind of what we gathered from the September 16th, quick discussion. It wasn't really robust. It was just throw us ideas and tell us if you want us to come back. At that time, I also provided you with some examples of what other cities did, just a couple. And based off of that, I can tell you Temecula starts at 3 o'clock. We have agencies that start actually as late as 7, like Elsinore is a good example of that. And then when you add in, like school districts and special districts, it kind of shifts the trend. It's a little all over the place. And so it just depends on the municipality. It depends on the special district. And so that's really something we just want you to know. It's not everybody's at 6. It really is 3 o'clock, 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 7 o'clock. So I want you to keep that in mind. So what I'm looking to do is I wanted to start with some considerations, and really I'm asking you all to consider the 4 things. When do you want to start closed session if you want to change it? Do you want to change the start time for your regular meetings? How do you want to deal with public comments? And also schedule for workshops. What does that look like to the body, to this entire body as a whole? And hopefully I can get some consensus from y'all. We'll be taking notes, and we're gonna deal with each section, and we're gonna do our best to kind of keep you on track, but then at the end, we're gonna definitely circle back and kind of define what it is we're hearing. Is that fair, Madam Mayor?
That's fine. I'm gonna start because I put myself in the queue first.
I'm not quite ready yet.
Oh, darn.
Still staff presentation. What I would like to talk about is closed session scheduling. So currently, it takes place prior to the city council regular meeting, as you know that. And so a suggestion per the staff report and per staff's analysis is moving closed session to the end of the meeting rather than at the beginning. And then I identified there, and what does that do? It eliminates variations in start times. So that's pretty effective. Therefore, we have consistency for all stakeholders. We're not shifting it. City staff involved, who are only involved in open session items, they could attend as needed, and then they can, of course, be excused after their portion of the open meeting agenda, while those involved in closed session would only be the ones remaining to stay. So not everybody attends closed session, as you know, so all those other folks that are here, they can all go home and spend time with their families and all that fun stuff. So that's currently what we do for closed session, and those are just some suggestions. That's just a suggestion based off of just a lot of variables. The second thing is you currently hold your meeting at 6 o'clock, as you know, so an alternative could be changing the start time to 4 o'clock. Or 5 or 6, but 4 o'clock is really what we saw was consistent with some things for various reasons. One of them is it provides a reasonable start time for city council members with professional commitments, because that was something we heard. Staff attendance may be optimized since meetings would occur closer to regular working hours, and that reduces overtime and late evenings or later evenings. A possible earlier end time for the meeting. So if you all start earlier, you might end earlier, which is beneficial for the public. Students who attend, those are actually the Eagle Scout those wanting to get an Eagle, that troop, they're a good example. They had to leave because they obviously need to go home and do what they have to do as students. So that's something, and you do know we have high school students that come often to get credit. And then it benefits city council and city staff just because we're ending earlier. It also allows opportunity to conduct business more efficiently because especially when we have lengthy agendas. Tonight is not a good example. We don't have a lengthy agenda, but often we've had, and we've run into the 10 o'clock or the 9:30, right? And so it's just, can be more efficient that way. So that's something to ponder on for regular meetings. And then for the public comments, currently public comments are held at the beginning of the agenda, as you know, and then during its respective item under discussion or public hearing, that will remain. So adding closed session public comment section in addition at the end. So you would still do it at the beginning, and then what we're suggesting is maybe you also do it at the end, and that will allow for those members of the public to arrive a little later. They could still have input before you all adjourn. Also, it provides accessibility to the public regardless of their arrival time. So it's just more accessibility. I think it can help because they won't miss out on the opportunity if they show up at, later into the meeting. And I would think we would do that right, just basically before adjournment. And then lastly, the workshops, those are held the same day as like today. So holding the workshop on the Thursday following a council meeting, the first and third week of the month. You could do this as needed, I suppose. I'll lean on maybe the city manager for that, but scheduling would be easier for the public. City council, it's the same type of improvement. It would be consistent and it would always be the same. So if you all had it council week Thursday at 6 o'clock or 4 o'clock or 5 o'clock, it will always be so, which is very consistent and nice for all stakeholders. It also allows for focus time for everybody who is involved in the study session. For example, let's use the hillside as an example. If the development services team also has a heavy item on the open agenda, they're trying to navigate both of these big ticket items, and it just kind of helps them focus more on the workshop only, and they don't have to worry about after the fact of presenting. And then keeping the workshops the same week as the council, it allows for agenda schedule to remain the same, which aligns with some efficiencies that Justin's helping us with. It does take a lot. As you know, I've gone over it with each of you, what it takes to get through an agenda item. Even a posting on a special takes time, effort, energy. It doesn't really change. And so if we kept it on the same week, then we would keep our actual deadlines the same. And that would be beneficial. So I would essentially post that same, because currently I post on Thursday. I would still post on Thursday for the Tuesday council meeting and at the same time for the Thursday workshop. So we thought that would be pretty efficient. And then of course you all have alternatives, and that's really, I'm leaving it to this council. As always, you can take any action that you deem appropriate. That was just a little guidance based off of what we heard. And we didn't put a specific recommendation because we really wanted this council to, share what is it that the vision is. We also want you to think about sustainability. If you are no longer on this council, right? Future councils, because now we're adjusting rules of procedure, so we really want it to stick, so to speak. So if you can think about that as you are talking this through. And so now, Madam Mayor.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I'm looking to see, to go into a discussion, and I am leaning on this council and the city manager to kind of, lead it. I'm here to guide, and I'm open, and we are ready.
Thank you. In my opinion, not everybody up at this dais is going to be retired or going to have flexibility in their jobs. And I think moving council to 4 o'clock would be the earliest I think we could move it to, just for purposes of people that work. Many of us, even if working from home, we do have a job, and we have to do that as well. I would really like us to stay on the first and third Tuesdays of the month. I would like to, if we want to move it forward, I would not move it forward other than starting at 4 o'clock. And I am opposed to having a closed session at the end because that makes staff stay longer. I would prefer to keep that in the beginning, and then everything would start at 4 o'clock. And then we just move forward from that, depending on what needed to be done. If we were going to change the workshops to the Thursday of the same week, I would like there to be a time frame put on them to not to exceed more than 2 hours, because I think 2 hours is plenty of time to get what we need done, in my opinion. So that's my thoughts, and I'll move it to Councilmember Holliday.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Great work on this, City Clerk staff. I like how you compiled all our cat musings, as it were, into something that we can grab our hands around. I like the 4 p.m. start time, followed by public comments on non-agenda items, then the agenda, and then public comments at the end of the agenda before we go into closed session, right? Okay. And then we'd have closed session, and if there was no reportable action, do we have to report out, or can we adjourn from closed session?
You all would still return, the clerk would be here, and you would report out.
Okay. And then the workshops, I agree with Madam Mayor, having a set time, 4 p.m., public comments workshop, which you did a great job with the workshop today of allowing that interaction, and then public comments at the end as well for someone who comes in at 5:30 and still wants to say something, because we're not making a decision, so they can have their input. As far as your comment on closed session at the end, if we're starting at 4, closed session would still allow staff to get out earlier, because that same staff that's in closed session is here till 8 or 9 o'clock at night currently.
Correct, but if we were to leave closed session at the beginning, they would not have, and we go through our meeting and their portion of the meeting is over with, they could then go home earlier and not have to wait till closed session if they have a closed session.
Potentially, but don't we have to have a set time for the council meeting to start? See, and that's the problem. If you put closed session on the front, then you're always saying, well, council starts at 4, and now you're moving it up to 2:30 or 3 for closed session to start.
You could start everything at 4 o'clock, and your time certain for council could be 5. That's an hour ahead of what we're doing now. That would give everybody, you'd get all the business done in closed session, report out, have your meeting, and maybe get out of here by 7:30.
Yeah, I think I'd rather have it at the end.
Okay.
Because the audience doesn't stick around.
No, I was looking more trying to accommodate staff.
Yeah, I understand.
Anything else? Mayor Pro Tem.
Although I'm not retired, I'm tired. I don't know how they do the 7 o'clock meeting. If that was here, I'd be asleep just like the tenderfoot kid in the audience. That's crazy.
You're not talking about Patrick, are you?
No.
Okay.
I've caught him a few times.
Yeah.
Really, I do like the idea of starting the meeting at 4. Anything before 4 o'clock is going to be hard to commit to, whether it's closed session, whether it's anything. The workshop on the opposite or the same Thursday, I like that idea. I don't care if it's that week, the next week, the other week. I think everything you've presented so far, I agree with. And the closed session item, I don't really have an opinion on. I'd probably rather just defer to Justin on that one and see what the biggest bang for the buck is for staff, and how that would, if that's going to be more efficient and better use of their time, I certainly would support that. And that's all I got.
Thank you. Councilmember Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. With regards to the workshop on the Thursday, I hold a leadership position as a county-wide representative, and Thursdays are allocated for those meetings. The only way I can make that work is I can adjust it to only the first Thursday of the month. That's the only Thursday that I would be available. With regards to closed session, I do agree with Councilmember Holliday. I I think, starting let me go back to the workshop. I'm opposed to the workshop starting at 4 o'clock. In my previous comments, the workshops are for the community. And as you see, we had 4 people here, but that's their target, that was our target audience, is the people that were here. With regards to our workshops, in regards to city council, is there statistics that tell us how many people watch online?
I don't have that at the ready, but do you have that?
I do, sir.
Great.
And so what I can tell you, let me find it. Kimberly, do you know off the top of your head?
Before you give that number, is this number based upon live viewings or total views?
So we did those that are watching live, and then we did a secondary of those who watched after the fact. So it is total views, but I did have Jace who kindly provided that information to me. So live, we were at approximately 264. And so.
What?
So, hello, everybody at home.
Madam City Clerk, may I ask another question with regards to the live? Did Jace identify whether it was through Facebook, whether it was through our website? Can you give us those stats, please?
We actually had him check YouTube because that was the highest viewership.
Okay.
So we did ask him to check YouTube, which he did. I can come back with Facebook if you'd like, but
no, that's okay.
And then there were a little over, I believe, there were 300 that were watching after the fact.
Wow, that's fantastic.
Yes, and hello to those people too.
Assistant City Manager, if you remember you and I going to, I think it was San Jose for when I was the mayor, they talked about YouTube being the #1 source of information. They did talk about that, so thank you for that.
You're welcome, and we had him do an average of 5 meetings.
Okay. So thank you for that. So with regards to the workshop, I would like to see the workshop start at 6 o'clock because I would like to entice the community. And if we could do it for, a period of time, let's say 6 months, to see if we have more participation from the community. And if we don't after 6 months, then we can set it at any time based on the statistics. But the whole point of governing at the local level is to engage with our residents. And I believe, at 6 o'clock, that would be beneficial for our community. So I would like to see the workshop start at 6 o'clock. I definitely would like to see a time limit on that as well. And if my colleagues want to do it on a Thursday, I'm going to request the first Thursday of the month. With regards to our regular meeting, I'm fine with starting at 4 o'clock. I would like to see closed session at the end. I concur with Councilmember Holliday, and the majority of our staff would be leaving except for the few staff members that are there to give a report. And once they give the report for closed session, I'm assuming they're allowed to go home. And then as far as public comment, I'll leave that as the discretion of the mayor sitting in the middle, who our next mayor is, how they would like to see that happen. But if we're going to set an actual policy, it doesn't matter to me. I just want to be accommodating to the residents as best as possible. So those are my comments. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
I want to ask you a question. On the workshop, you wanted to make that the first Thursday of the month, correct? If we were going to have a workshop, that's when you would like to do it.
It should be the first Thursday that follows the first Tuesday.
That's what I was just going to say.
Right. So
yes.
That is the only Thursday based on my schedule right now that I can accommodate. I cannot accommodate any other Thursday in the month at this time.
So so our meetings are the second Thursday, first and the third, so it would be the first Thursday of every month, which then doesn't allow us to go to a chamber mixer, or doesn't allow us to go things that are already on the calendar if we do that.
Thursdays, like I said, I hold another leadership position.
No, I understand. No,
Yeah.
I'm just trying to make sure I understood that. Okay.
Keep in mind, though, you can have the second Thursday of the month be the first Thursday after a council meeting.
For sure, the second and the fourth and the third is out of the question for me of each month.
I'm just saying, when we set this policy,
Yeah.
if you say it's the first Thursday after the council meeting, which is what city clerk is recommending, that it's following a council meeting, it could be the second Thursday.
It could be, and I would not be available.
She wouldn't be available.
It would have happened this month.
It would have happened this month.
Unless I quit my.
Okay, so we
Or have your vice chair do that one special meeting for you.
I think we are a consensus that they would like to have closed session at the end of the meeting. I do believe that's what I understood to be true, since I'm the only one that wanted it at the beginning, so that would be 3.
Should we ask our city manager what he thinks?
I think the end works quite well, in part because closed sessions, when they're on the long side, go about 2 hours, but the average time or the median duration's probably more like an hour. So almost always that's still going to mean most, if not all, staff go home earlier than they do now.
Okay.
But it will give you the benefit of having an exact start time for the regular session, which is important, without speculating. That way we can adjust the closed session as short or long as it needs to be and still save staff some time. It's a good sweet spot.
Yeah, because the thing I like about that is currently we set an estimated time for a start of a closed session because we have to start this at 6.
Correct.
And sometimes we're like, oh, we've got to get out of here in the next 10 minutes. Okay, what's that next item?
Right.
And this eliminates that
Okay.
rush.
So if that's what what start time would you like? Would you like it at 4 or at 5? I've got 4.
The workshop?
No, the
council.
council.
You know what, Mayor, it does not matter to me. If you want to start at 4, I'm fine with that. If you want to start at 5, it does not matter to me.
Okay. Okay, so I think we're leaning to 4 o'clock on so council would start right at 4 o'clock. And then closed session would be after that. And we're looking at the workshops. We don't have that many. I mean, we do, but if that Thursday doesn't work out, that's a problem. If the Thursday works out, it may
Like
be.
this month, it would have not worked out
Would
for
not have worked
Councilmember
out.
Stone.
Right.
So that means we either have it and she can't attend it, or we move it to another month.
Or you hold a special.
Or we hold a special?
Yes, or you hold a and pardon me, but.
With
What about Wednesdays?
Wednesdays are fine with me, too. I can't do the second Tuesday of the month if we held them on the second or fourth Tuesday. I couldn't do the second Tuesday as
I'm
I had
wide
a
open
commitment
on
there.
Wednesdays. If
Wednesdays are fine.
Madam City Clerk, is that too much for you to do it Tuesday and Wednesday?
I will defer to the city manager, but I will
Planning
defer to him.
Commission.
Sorry, I want to make sure I understand the question. For which days?
For the workshop.
Workshop, have it the Wednesday right after a council meeting.
Yeah, I don't think it's a problem to do them back to back necessarily. I think especially in the likely event that more of our regular sessions conclude a little earlier in the evening. On the rare occasion where we still have long meetings and longer closed sessions, which sometimes stack up together, those would be like the longer meetings now. So those could still be 8:30 or 9 o'clock exits, and then having a meeting that starts at 6 means necessarily we're going to go beyond regular work time the following Wednesday. So there would be times when that stacks up a little bit, but we could certainly make it work.
What about planning commissions? Don't they meet tomorrow?
No, they actually are on your opposite week.
Okay.
And so we have looked at commission schedules, and based off of what we recommended, there was no conflicts.
Okay.
But if there is a conflict, when I return, we will certainly deal with that. But essentially, we can figure that out.
Councilmember Stone, would you be objectionable to a 5 o'clock start time for the workshops?
for someone that has a job would,
That's not what you normally say.
well, but trust me, he does not work, so let's make that really clear. But if you were working a full-time job, would 5 o'clock be, like I said, this is really about having the community involved. And
I agree.
so
5 to 7 is a 2-hour window.
yeah. Listen,
I'm game.
Let's try for 6 months, and if it doesn't work, then we'll adjust.
And 5 to 7 would help with staff time too.
It would. I also think we would probably take some luxuries. You know, our work sessions are designed for 60 to 120 minutes, 1 to 2 hours. 90 minutes is an example today. When we had circumstances like we did today where the regular session could have been even shorter than it was, or it will be, when we conclude, we might throw on a 60-minute work session on the regular agenda instead, right? So we would kind of play with the schedule that way, especially when we had short closed sessions, right? So that we could just manage that schedule as best as possible.
So you're going to start it at 3?
No, I'm saying as an alternative to even having it as a work session, we'd put it on the regular discussion, which we do sometimes.
Right on the agenda.
Yeah, yes, on the regular agenda.
Gotcha.
During a meeting like this one where we only had one other discussion item.
Yeah.
So we'd play with the schedule that way to try to minimize having
An
2
extra
longer
day.
meetings
Okay.
back to back.
And that would make sense because since you're starting at 4, that then gives the public time to be here for that agenda item.
So you were saying we'd start at 4, we then would go to closed session at the end of the regular meeting, then come back and do a workshop? Is that what you're saying?
No.
It would just put it would be an agenda item.
Yep.
Part of the agenda.
Oh, it'd be part of the agenda, the
for
workshop?
instance, today we would have had 2 discussion topics potentially.
Okay.
The hillside ordinance.
Okay.
And this item. We probably would have downsized the hillside ordinance to be an hour instead of 90 minutes, closer to 90 minutes. But since we started at 4, in that scenario, instead of getting out at roughly 8, which looks like what we're on track for, we'd still get out at roughly 6.
Okay.
There's also Saturday at 7 a.m.
No, there's not.
And sorry, it wouldn't be 6. It would be 6 for regular session, then a closed. So it'd be, today would have been 6:30 in that scenario, which is just fine.
Okay.
That works fine.
That works? Did you get that?
Actually, I'm going to ask Mr. City Manager, for the workshop, can you just reiterate?
Yeah, so what I'm really saying is pick the time that you think works, and we will end up deciding what goes on which agenda. How about that?
Instead of a separate day for a workshop?
So there would be some occasions when we would agendize it as a regular agenda discussion topic instead of a work session.
that.
But in instances where we had either long regular session agendas or a longer work session discussion, like 2 hours, those would be the times we would probably schedule it on the second day,
That works.
the Wednesday.
Okay.
5 on Wednesday.
Done.
After council.
Okay. Okay.
And if my schedule were to change and you prefer Thursday, I'll let you know.
Okay, well, I will also, that Wednesday, our council member that sits here teaches on Wednesday nights, so that's not going to work for her. She does teach at the college. So I think we need to think about this before because she's not here to voice that, and it just popped into my head, so I know she
So
teaches.
I guess the question is, do we have to have a workshop the week that we have council? Can we just move it to the next Tuesday?
But does that make it hard for you for reporting purposes and posting?
So the thing we would like to avoid if possible is it is quite a production to prepare materials. There are quite a few people that touch any agenda report. It goes through a series of reviews to get refined, et cetera. Even the system of posting it, putting it all together is its own kind of animal. We'd like to not do that every week, right? What's nice about having a break between regular council sessions is we're preparing for a meeting in the week we're not having a meeting. If we're having a meeting of some kind every week we're both preparing for the next meeting while we're having the first meeting. So we'd like to avoid that if we can, but to be honest, we also have some discretion about when those materials are due. It would be a little bit difficult to tell people you need to have it done a whole week in advance and not give them the grace, but we could try to hold that line so that we're creating all the materials on the same day, and one would just be out ahead of time. I also think if we really need to touch base with our 5th council member, what we might do is lock in, or at least tentatively lock in, the places where we have some consensus over regular sessions starting at 4, closed session occurring after, and maybe revisit this one more time. And we could also put our heads together on some other options just for the work session component.
Yeah, I think we're pretty much in agreement starting time on regular sessions and closed session being at the end. I think the workshop is the hiccup. And we could figure that out to accommodate everybody's schedule, because we are all busy. We all mark off Tuesdays, and we have other things on Wednesdays, Thursdays, and Fridays, and Mondays, so.
How about this? Let me go back to my board and see if I can switch my third Thursday meeting to the first, to the second. That opens up the third Thursday. Nope, you're saying no. Nope.
No, because the third Thursday isn't necessarily the Thursday after the council, because Thursday, like this month, Thursday started on the 2nd, but the council meeting wasn't until this week. So the third Thursday is a non-council week.
Yeah, it becomes.
So as soon as you move a day, you can't do first or third. You have to do Thursday after a council meeting. So I appreciate your effort.
Okay, here's another suggestion. Why can't we just have consensus on a day? So if you want to propose a workshop, let's just, get consensus of a specific Thursday that works for all of us. So if it doesn't fall on a second or a third or a fourth, let's just keep it up in the air.
Which is really what we've done even now, normal practice, because depending on how long the session is, we say, can you do it before the regular session? Or on occasion, we've scheduled them on different days. So we could certainly just take it as it comes. In instances where we have numerous, and right now happens to be one of those where we probably have 3 or 4 at least work sessions identified for the next couple months.
Yes.
We would also probably try to do that all at once when we could and get them all locked in. And we might still shoot for similar days, right? If we could generally pick a Thursday or generally pick a Wednesday, we probably would, only so that it's predictable for our residents. But we deviate from that now, so no reason why we couldn't in the future as needed.
Okay, so what I'm hearing again, I'm just going to reiterate this. Start time would be at 4 or 5. What did we decide? 4 o'clock with closed session at the end, but public comments at the beginning and at the end for those that did not be able to speak at the beginning of an agenda, and that workshops would then be up to the discretion of city manager, and we will look at those on a workshop case by case basis. Yeah, something like that. Does that work? Okay.
Yes, that works. And
what time do we want to start the workshop?
It would be dependent upon the city manager when he wanted to schedule it. So if it was like, if he wanted to schedule it in conjunction with a council meeting at the end, or as an agenda item, it would be different. But I would say that if it's held on a different day, we should target 5 o'clock.
5 o'clock.
Yeah, we're hearing the interest in having those held a little later, at least on a trial basis. So we would shoot for a day when we could accommodate a 5 o'clock start.
Okay. Madam City Clerk, are there any public comments on this item?
Seeing none.
Seeing none? Well, I know, we're all looking around.
Sorry,
I just wanted to do it, okay. Any further comments from anybody? I think we've provided you some clear direction. Do you want us to take a vote on this?
Yes, so
Okay.
I'd like for you to take a vote, and really what it's doing is it's, one, acknowledging that this will begin the first meeting in 2026, and so you are now directing me to amend your rules of procedures. I'm going to do that. It'll be red line. It'll probably come back under consent unless you all want it as a discussion item, and we will adopt that before end of year.
Okay.
And then you start in 2026. So if you could take a, if I can get a motion, if the mayor could get a motion, a second on that, that would be great.
Madam City Clerk, I just have one comment, please. And I'm hoping that we're going to do a lot of outreach about our time change. Okay, thank you so much.
Yeah, that's why I wanted to wait until the end of the year, but we'll do a robust public engagement on that for sure. Absolutely.
Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing no, I need a motion and a second. I have a motion by Councilmember Holliday. I have a second by Councilmember Stone. Please vote. Or not.
Can you go over there? Kimberly's going to go look at it.
Kimberly to the rescue.
So quiet. Okay, it's way too quiet in here.
I have it sort of sleep.
There we go.
I want to be a Boy Scout.
Motion carries unanimously 4-0.
Thank you very much. We're going to move on to reconsideration. Madam City Clerk. Run.
Any council member who voted on the prevailing side of the original motion may move a reconsideration to consider new information or correct inadvertent errors on a non-public hearing item at the same or the next meeting. At this time, are there any requests from the City Council for reconsideration?
None. Okay, thank you very much. We're going to move on to council members' request to add or withdraw items to the future agenda. Madam City Clerk.
Now is the time for council member requests to add or withdraw items to future agendas. There will be no discussion on the requests. A brief explanation of the request may be given. The merit of the items being requested may not be discussed or debated. Are there any City Council requests?
Madam City Manager Clifton, I know that we had talked about earlier a workshop for the e-bikes. Do you think it's necessary?
No, what I'd propose as an alternative is we visit with the police department and ask them their opinion on areas where any additional strengthening of rules could create safety. Let them balance things like access to sidewalks, concern of vehicle collisions, and the whole picture. And then if necessary, to bring back a revision proposed for your consideration.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Great. Seeing none. At this time, there is no further business. We are adjourned.